My name is Helen Anderson, and I grew up in what I believed was the ideal American family. We weren't rich initially, but we were happy, just mom, dad, and me, living in our modest starter home. My father, James Anderson, was the hardest working man I've ever known. He built his transportation company from the ground up, starting with just 2 trucks and gradually expanding into a successful business. I remember him sometimes coming home covered in grease because he insisted on maintaining the trucks himself in the early days. Mom, Sarah, though I can barely bring myself to call her that anymore, worked as a restaurant manager. She was good at her job, though she constantly complained. James, she'd sigh during dinner, pushing food around her plate. I want to be a proper housewife. All these late nights are killing me. Dad would smile, pat her hand, and promise her that soon she'd be able to quit. He kept that promise. When I was 9, Dad's business took off. He landed several major contracts, and suddenly we were moving into a beautiful 2-story house in one of the nicest neighborhoods in town. I got my room huge and bright, with windows looking out over our backyard. I went wild decorating it. Pale purple walls, fairy lights everywhere, and a massive bookshelf Dad built himself. He spent an entire weekend on it, cursing under his breath when he thought I couldn't hear him, but beaming with pride when it was finally finished. Mom quit her job shortly after we moved, just as she'd always wanted. Instead of focusing on the house as she'd claimed, she was barely ever home. It was always lunch with the girls, a quick shopping trip, or a salon appointment that ran late. Dad didn't seem to mind. He was too busy with his company. However, he always made time for me. Every Sunday, we went for ice cream, and he listened to all my stories about school and friends as if they were the most important things in the world. The last time we had ice cream together was just before I turned 11. It was a bright spring day, and Dad was telling me about one of his drivers calling in sick. "Guess I'll have to do the run myself tomorrow," he said, finishing his cone, just like the old days. "Can I come with you?" I asked, excited at the prospect of a road trip with Dad. He chuckled, ruffled my hair, and said, "Not this time, princess. It's just a quick overnight trip. I'll be back before you know it." I remember hugging him extra tight that evening before bed. "Love you, Dad," I whispered, not knowing it would be the last time I'd ever say those words to him. The next morning, he left before dawn. Mom was still asleep, so Maria, our nanny, made his coffee and packed him lunch. I heard his truck start and pull out of the driveway. That was the last time I ever saw my father alive. The phone call came at 3:47 a.m. I know because I was awake, unable to sleep due to a strange feeling in my stomach. I heard Mom scream from her bedroom, followed by the sound of something breaking, probably her bedside lamp. The next few hours are a blur in my memory. Police officers in our living room, Maria holding me tight, while Mom paced back and forth, talking on the phone. Words like massive collision and died instantly floated around me like dark butterflies. Dad's truck had collided with a jackknifed semi-truck. They said he didn't suffer, as if that was supposed to make it better, but nothing did. Nothing could bring back my father. The funeral is mostly a haze. I remember staring at the closed casket, not believing Dad was inside. Mom put on quite a show, wailing and practically throwing herself across the casket at one point. Looking back now, I realize how theatrical it all was, but at 11, I thought that's just how adults handled grief. It was at the funeral that I met Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia for the first time. They looked so much like strangers, yet Uncle Robert had Dad's eyes, the same kind, crinkly corners when he tried to smile. "Helen," he said, kneeling to my level, "I'm your father's brother. I'm so sorry we're meeting like this. Why haven't I met you before?" I asked, direct as only a child can be. A shadow crossed his face. "Your father and we disagreed many years ago, but none of that matters now. I had to come say goodbye to my little brother." After the funeral, Mom's grief evaporated like morning dew. Within weeks, she was meeting with Dad's lawyers, taking control of his company, and acting like she knew the first thing about running a transportation business. She started throwing around terms like restructuring and modernization, but it was obvious she was just making things up as she went along. I spent most of my time with Maria, who would sadly shake her head whenever Mom came home with shopping bags from expensive stores. "Your mother's spending money like water," Maria muttered one day while making my lunch. "Those poor drivers haven't been paid properly in weeks." She was right. Dad's employees started quitting one by one, men and women who'd worked for him for years, some since the beginning. I remembered their names, their faces, how they used to bring me little presents from their routes. Now they were leaving, unable to feed their families on promises and excuses. 6 months after Dad's death, Mom sold what was left of his company for a fraction of what it had been worth. She acted like she'd made some brilliant business decision, but everyone knew the truth. She'd run Dad's life's work into the ground. After the sale, Mom was rarely home, always out somewhere, and I spent most of my time with Maria. She started teaching me Spanish, saying it would come in handy someday. I spent a lot of time at the library after school. It was better than coming home to an empty house. Mom would breeze in late at night, sometimes smelling of wine, barely acknowledging my existence. "Oh, you're still up," she'd say as if surprised to find me in my own home. Then she'd disappear into her room, and I wouldn't see her again until the next evening, if at all. Then came that Sunday night. I was doing homework in the kitchen when Mom burst through the door, giggling like a teenager. She wasn't alone. "Helen, sweetie," she called out, her voice thick with fake enthusiasm, "come meet Richard." Richard was tall and wore an expensive suit that somehow still looked cheap. His smile didn't reach his eyes when he looked at me. "Helen," Mom said, clutching Richard's arm like a lifeline, "Richard and I got married last weekend. He's your new father. We're going to be a proper family again." "I already had a proper family," I said, my voice shaking. "I already have a father." Richard's fake smile disappeared. "Listen here, young lady," he said, his voice stern. "Your mother and I are married now. You need to accept that and show some respect." "You're not my father," I spat back. "You'll never be my father. See what I mean?" Richard turned to Mom. "Difficult child. Needs discipline." But Richard moving in was just the beginning. Within a week, his mother, Gloria, his sister, Janet, and his 12-year-old niece, Madison, had all moved in too. They took over the house like an invading army, rearranging furniture and changing the decor Mom and Dad had picked out together. Mom didn't seem to mind. She and Janet became instant best friends, spending hours shopping and gossiping. Gloria took over the kitchen, complaining about Maria's cooking until Mom fired her. I lost the only person who still cared about me in that house. Then came the final blow. I came home from school one day to find Madison in my room that Dad had built the bookshelf in, my room with purple walls and fairy lights. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "Aunt Sarah said I could have this room," Madison smirked. "It's bigger than the guest room, and I need space for all my things." "Get out!" I screamed. "This is my room." "Not anymore," she taunted, throwing my books off the shelves. "Your mom says you're moving to this small room down the hall." I lost it. I lunged at Madison, and we both went down in a tangle of arms and legs, pulling hair and scratching faces, both of us screaming. Richard and Mom ran in, pulling us apart. "Helen!" Mom shrieked. "How dare you? Go to your new room right now." "No, this is my room." "Dad gave it to me." Richard grabbed my arm roughly. "Your father is dead," he snarled. "This is my house now, and you'll do as you're told." They locked me in this small guest room for 2 days, only letting me out for school and bathroom breaks. My books and things were piled in boxes in the corner. Dad's bookshelf was thrown out with the trash. Through the wall, I could hear Madison playing music in my old room and Mom laughing with Janet downstairs, like nothing was wrong. A few weeks after the room incident, I was heading to the bathroom late at night when I heard voices from downstairs. I crept to the top of the stairs, staying in the shadows. "The girl is becoming more difficult every day," Richard was saying. "She's disrupting our family harmony. Have you considered finding her another home?" My heart stopped. "Another home? You mean adoption?" Mom asked, and my blood ran cold at how thoughtful she sounded. "I suppose that could work. She's still young enough." "It would be better for everyone," Janet added. Madison's afraid of her after that attack, and honestly, she doesn't fit in here anymore. I ran back to my room, buried my face in my pillow, and told myself they couldn't mean it. Mom wouldn't give me away. She couldn't. I pushed the conversation to the back of my mind, convincing myself it was just talk. 2 months later, my 13th birthday arrived. I wasn't expecting much. My birthdays hadn't been celebrated since Dad died. But to my surprise, Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia showed up at the door. "Happy birthday, Helen," Uncle Robert said, hugging me tight. His eyes narrowed when Richard walked past, ignoring us completely. Mom had thrown together a hasty dinner, probably embarrassed that Dad's brother might judge her. The tension around the table was thick enough to cut with a knife. Then Mom cleared her throat. "Robert, Patricia, I'm glad you're here. There's something I need to discuss." Something in her tone made my stomach clench. "Helen isn't happy here," Mom continued, not looking at me, "and frankly, we're not happy either. She doesn't fit in with our new family dynamic. I've decided to put her up for adoption." The words hit me like a physical blow. The conversation I'd overheard hadn't been just talk after all. "Since you and Patricia don't have children of your own," Mom continued, her voice casual, as if she were discussing the weather, "you might want to take her. If not, I'll start looking for other families." The room spun. I couldn't breathe. On my birthday, she was giving me away on my birthday. Uncle Robert's chair scraped back so violently it fell over. "We'll take her," he thundered, his face red with fury. "And you, Sarah, are the most despicable excuse for a mother I've ever seen. How dare you?" Richard started to stand, but one look from Uncle Robert made him sink back into his chair. "Patricia," Uncle Robert said, his voice gentler, "help Helen pack her things. We're leaving now." Aunt Patricia wrapped an arm around my shaking shoulders and led me upstairs. We packed quickly, throwing my clothes and a few remaining possessions into bags. I was crying so hard I could barely see. "It's going to be okay, sweetheart," Aunt Patricia kept whispering. "We've got you now." I walked out of that house without looking back at Mom. She didn't try to stop me, didn't try to say goodbye. The last thing I heard as Uncle Robert closed the car door was Madison asking if she could have my room, too. The transition wasn't easy at first. I'd wake up in my new room at Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia's house, momentarily confused about where I was, but then I'd smell Aunt Patricia's coffee and bacon wafting up from the kitchen and remember that I was home, my real home. The adoption process moved quickly. Mom signed away her rights without hesitation, which hurt at the time, but eventually felt like a blessing. Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia became Mom and Dad on paper, making official what was already true in my heart. "Helen," Uncle Robert said one morning over breakfast, "we enrolled you in Riverside Prep. It's a better school than your old one, and we think you'll like it there." I did like it there. Without the constant stress of my old home life, I started doing better in classes. My teachers noticed, and so did my new parents. They came to everything, every school play, every academic awards ceremony, every parent-teacher conference. When I joined the debate club, they sat through every competition, beaming with pride even when I lost. They encouraged me to try new things: piano lessons, summer science camps, and volunteering at the local animal shelter. They supported it all, not just with money, but with genuine interest and involvement. The pain of my mother's rejection faded gradually, replaced by the warm certainty of being truly loved. I stopped thinking about her, stopped wondering if she ever thought about me. My new life was too full, too happy for those old hurts to matter anymore. High school graduation came, and I had the loudest cheering section in the audience, not just Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia, but their whole extended family, who had embraced me as their own. "We have something to tell you," Aunt Patricia said at my graduation dinner. "We've been saving for your college funds since the day you came to live with us." They'd put aside enough to send me to any school I chose. I picked State University's business school, planning to major in investment management. College was incredible. I threw myself into my studies, determined to make them proud. During my junior year internship at Goldman Sachs, Aunt Patricia mentioned casually that she'd run into my birth mother at the grocery store. "She has a son now," Aunt Patricia said carefully, watching my reaction. They're still in your father's old house with Richard's family. I just nodded, surprised to feel nothing but mild curiosity. That life seemed like a distant dream now, happening to someone else. After graduation, I landed a job at Morgan Stanley. My starting salary made my eyes pop. It was more money than I'd ever imagined making right out of college. The day I got my first paycheck, I went straight to the jewelry store. Uncle Robert had been wearing the same worn-out watch for years, and Aunt Patricia had been eyeing a particular pearl necklace in a local shop window. When I gave them their gifts, Aunt Patricia started crying, and Uncle Robert's hand shook as he put on his new watch. "You shouldn't have spent your money on us," he protested weakly. "Who else would I spend it on?" I asked, hugging them both. "You're my parents. You're the ones who made all of this possible." 6 years flew by after college. I climbed the corporate ladder at Morgan Stanley, earning promotion after promotion until I was managing my team. Every success felt sweeter because I could share it with Mom and Dad, as I now called Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia without hesitation. The apartment came first, a beautiful 2-bedroom condo in a nice part of the city. Mom helped me decorate it, and Dad insisted on checking all the paperwork before I signed the mortgage. Then I met Michael. After a year of dating, he proposed during a weekend trip to the beach. I said yes before he even finished asking the question. Mom cried when we told them, and Dad pulled Michael into a bear hug. "Welcome to the family, son," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. We threw ourselves into wedding planning. Mom and I spent weekends looking at venues and tasting cakes, while Dad and Michael bonded over budget spreadsheets and vendor contracts. Then the message arrived on Facebook. "Helen, sweetheart, I've heard about your upcoming wedding. I know it's been a long time, but I'm still your mother. I've changed, and I want to make things right. Please let me be part of your special day. I miss you so much, *. My hand shook as I read the message. I immediately called Mom. "I saw Sarah yesterday," Mom said quietly when I told her about the message. "At the grocery store. She didn't ask about you, not once. But when I mentioned how successful you've become, how you're getting married, well, her eyes lit up in a way I didn't like." Mom hesitated before continuing. "There's more. That niece of her husband's, Madison, she got pregnant, married some deadbeat, and moved back into the house with her husband. The whole family is constantly fighting." Sarah was complaining about money problems rather loudly in the middle of the store. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. So that's why she reached out. She needs money. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as memories flooded back. The room she gave away, the birthday she threw me away, the years of silence when she had every opportunity to reach out but didn't. Finally, I typed, "Sarah, let me be clear, you are not my mother. You lost that right when you gave me away on my 13th birthday. I have parents who love me unconditionally, something you never managed to do. I don't want you at my wedding. I don't want you in my life. Don't contact me again, *. I hit send, then immediately blocked her. My hands were steady now, my mind clear. I felt lighter somehow, as if I'd finally put down a weight I didn't know I was carrying. The morning of my wedding dawned perfect and clear. Michael's parents had rented the Mason Creek estate for the ceremony, a beautiful historic property with sprawling gardens and a restored Victorian mansion. I was in the bridal suite with Mom, putting the finishing touches on my makeup, when there was a knock at the door. Miss Anderson, one of the security guards, looked uncomfortable. "I'm sorry to disturb you, but there's a situation at the front gate. Some people are insisting they know you, a man, a woman, and a teenage boy." My stomach dropped. Somehow, I knew exactly who it was. "I'll handle this," I said, standing up carefully in my wedding dress. "Helen, you don't have to," Mom started, but I shook my head. "Yes, I do. Once and for all." I walked to the front gates, my wedding heels clicking against the cobblestone path, and there they were, Sarah, Richard, and a boy who must have been my half-brother, though he looked exactly like Madison. "Helen!" Sarah screamed when she saw me, grabbing the iron bars of the gate. "How dare you not invite your mother to your wedding? Let us in immediately." I took a moment to look at her. She'd aged pearly. Her designer clothes were last season's, her makeup too heavy, her hair desperately in need of a touch-up. Richard looked thinner, more haggard. The expensive suit was replaced by something off the rack. Richard should be the one walking you down the aisle, Sarah continued, her voice shrill. Your father. That made me laugh, a genuine, hearty laugh that echoed across the courtyard. My father? The man who locked me in a room for 2 days? The man who helped you throw away your daughter? We're family. Sarah's voice cracked. You can't just pretend we don't exist. Look at how you're living this fancy wedding, your big job, your expensive clothes. Meanwhile, we can barely make ends meet. We're drowning in debt, and you're here playing princess. There it was, the real reason for this dramatic appearance. I'm not playing at anything, I said coldly. I worked for everything I have, and let's be clear, you're not my family. You gave up that right years ago. My parents are inside that house. They're the ones who raised me, supported me, loved me unconditionally. You need our help. Sarah was practically foaming at the mouth now. After everything we did for you. Everything you did for me? I cut her off. You mean throwing me away like garbage? Taking away my room, my home, my childhood? That's what you did for me. I turned to the security guards. These people are strangers who are trespassing. Please remove them from the property. They are not welcome here. You can't do this. Sarah screamed as the guards moved forward. I'm your mother. No, I said firmly. You're just the woman who gave birth to me. There's a difference. I turned my back on her continued screams and walked away, my head held high. When I returned to the bridal suite, Mom was waiting with a worried expression. Are you okay, sweetheart? I took a deep breath and smiled. You know what? I've never been better. That chapter of my life is finally completely closed. There was a knock at the door and Dad poked his head in. Ready, princess? I looked in the mirror one last time, adjusting my veil. The woman looking back at me wasn't that scared 13-year-old girl anymore. I was strong, successful, and loved, truly loved. I'm ready, I said, taking Dad's arm. The wedding march began to play as we approached the garden ceremony. I could see Michael waiting at the altar, beaming at me with tears in his eyes. Our guests stood, turning to watch as Dad walked me down the aisle. This was how it should be. The man who taught me to drive, who helped me with my college applications, who showed me what a father's love means, was the one giving me away. The ceremony was perfect. Michael and I exchanged our vows under a blue sky, surrounded by flowers and the people who truly loved us. When he kissed me for the first time as my husband, our guests erupted in cheers. The reception lasted well into the night. Dad gave a touching speech that had everyone crying, then made everyone laugh with embarrassing stories from my college years. Mom danced with Michael while I danced with Dad, and I couldn't stop smiling. That was 6 months ago. Michael and I just got back from our honeymoon in Greece, and life has settled into a wonderful new normal. Sometimes people ask me about my real parents, and I tell them truthfully that my real parents are the ones who chose me, who loved me, who shaped me into the person I am today. I don't know what happened to Sarah and her family after the wedding, and honestly, I don't care. I heard through the grapevine that they had to sell Dad's old house, but that's not my concern anymore. That part of my life is over. My story isn't about being abandoned or betrayed. It's about finding your real family, the people who love you not because they have to, but because they want to. It's about choosing happiness over bitterness, forgiveness over anger, and moving forward instead of looking back. I'm Helen Anderson Mitchell now, and I couldn't be happier with the way things turned out. Every morning, I wake up next to a man who loves me completely, and every Sunday, we have dinner with the parents who chose me and never let me go. Dropping out of high school was one of the hardest decisions I ever made, and it shaped my life in unexpected ways. But recently, I was faced with another tough choice: accept a demotion at work or risk losing my job entirely. The trouble began when Selah, our new sales manager, introduced drastic changes to the department. She announced that only employees with college degrees would be allowed to handle client deals. Those of us without degrees were given menial tasks like making coffee, organizing files, or even cleaning. Anyone who objected faced demotion, or worse, termination. Selah's attitude toward me made it clear she wanted me gone. It seemed personal, like she had a grudge against me. I knew she didn't see any value in keeping me on the team. Still, I understood how important my work was for the company. My departure would leave a significant gap in the team, especially since I was managing a crucial $1,400 million deal with Sun Holdings. Sayla didn't seem to know that I was the one responsible for this high-stakes contract. She was about to find out the hard way. Let me introduce myself properly. I'm Archer. I'm 64 years old and work in the sales department at Calix Corporation, a major player in the wholesale industry with annual revenues of $30 billion. My job mainly involves managing contracts with long-term clients. While I'm no longer young enough for fieldwork or cold calling, I oversee ongoing deals from my desk and occasionally attend client meetings when needed. It's a role I take pride in, even if I'm not climbing the corporate ladder anymore. Sayla, on the other hand, is a rising star in the company. She earned her position as sales manager through her impressive academic background. She graduated from NYU with top honors and quickly climbed the ranks. Her promotion happened around the same time I was rehired after retiring briefly. From the moment I returned, I could sense tension. I suspected my rehire after retirement might have caused some resentment, but I never imagined she'd go to such lengths to push me out. One day, Sayla walked up to my desk with a confident smirk. "How's the work going, Archer?" she asked casually. "It's going well," I replied, keeping my tone polite but neutral. She said, narrowing her eyes. "Reading documents must be quite a challenge with your mature eyesight." I knew what she was doing, trying to get under my skin. Her digs about my age and abilities were nothing new. About half the retirees at Calix Corporation get rehired, so my situation wasn't unusual. Still, Sayla liked to remind me that I wasn't as sharp as the younger employees. I stayed calm and answered, "I managed just fine. Thank you." But she wasn't done. "You really should have stayed retired," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You weren't exactly pulling your weight before you left. Is it because you didn't finish high school and need the paycheck? Or are you just here to steal ones?" Her words stung, but I refused to let her see it. I've always known that my lack of a high school diploma made me an easy target in a world that values education so highly. Being a 62-something high school dropout is unusual, and people don't hesitate to remind me of it. It's harder to earn respect when you don't have the credentials to back you up, and Sayla made sure to bring up my education, or lack thereof, at every opportunity. After a moment of silence, she dropped a pile of documents on my desk. "Here's some work for you," she said. "You should be grateful." Grateful? For the extra workload? I sighed quietly as I realized it would mean staying late, but I didn't complain. "Understood," I said simply. Sayla smirked. "That's what I thought. It's good to see you're so obedient. After all, with your background, you don't have much choice, do you? You'll always be following orders from people younger than you. Must be tough." Her words were like daggers, but I refused to let her provoke me. The room felt tense as everyone around us tried to focus on their work, pretending they didn't hear the exchange. This wasn't the first time Sayla had tried to humiliate me, and it wouldn't be the last. A few days later, Sayla called a team meeting to announce a major change in how we worked. Her tone was firm and authoritative as she laid out her plan. "From now on," she said, "only employees with college degrees will handle client deals. Those without degrees will take care of paperwork, make sure the office is clean, and serve tea to the graduates so they can focus on their work." I was stunned. "But I have ongoing deals I'm responsible for," I protested. "I can't just drop them." She cut me off. "Those deals will now be handled by the college graduates," she said coldly. "As a high school dropout, you don't need to worry about them anymore. Now, go fetch some tea." Her dismissal was so casual, so cruel, that I barely knew how to respond. I wasn't the only one shocked. Another employee raised a concern. "If we suddenly replace the person managing a deal, won't that make our clients lose trust in us?" Sayla rolled her eyes. "That's exactly why people without degrees are useless," she snapped. "Clients don't trust them. They'd rather work with someone educated and qualified. Can't you see that?" The employee fell silent, clearly intimidated. "Sayla's new rules," left everyone confused and uneasy. Splitting the team into college graduates and dropouts felt demeaning and unnecessary. Even though she invited us to share our thoughts, it was obvious she didn't really want to hear them. Anyone who spoke up risked becoming her next target. It was clear to me that Selah's real goal wasn't efficiency, it was control. And if pushing me out of the company was part of that, she wasn't going to stop until she got her way. Selah's tone grew colder as she addressed the room. If you can't accept these changes, you'll be transferred to our distribution facility in Nebraska. If that's not suitable, you're free to leave. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what the Nebraska distribution center was like. Tedious work, long hours spent sorting and moving packages, and pay significantly lower than what we earned at the headquarters. For most employees, staying at headquarters, even if it meant performing demeaning tasks like making coffee or cleaning, seemed like the better option. But I couldn't understand how Selah's decision could possibly benefit Calix Corporation. It felt like she was more interested in asserting her authority than improving efficiency. Finally, I spoke up, unable to hold back any longer. If you change the person managing ongoing deals, it will only make our clients lose trust in us. These deals are built on relationships and consistency. Disrupting that could cause serious problems. Selah's glare pierced through me. "What's your issue?" she snapped. Her harshness caught me off guard, and all I could manage was an awkward smile. Her victorious expression made it clear she was enjoying this. "High school dropouts like you have limited options," she said coldly. "You're past your prime and don't bring any value to this company anymore. There's no reason to keep you around." Her words stunned me. Selah had been singling me out for a long time, but this was the first time she had been so blunt about her feelings. It didn't matter to her that I had decades of experience. To her, my age and lack of a diploma made me unworthy of respect, or even a job. I replied calmly, "I don't mind working in Nebraska, sorting packages. They often need part-time helpers, so I'm sure they'd appreciate a full-time employee like me. But if a 62-year-old grandfather like me shows up, they might think I'm not the right fit." Selah chuckled, clearly amused. "So, what's your plan then?" she asked, leaning forward with a smirk. I thought about my options. It was likely that the CEO and HR department weren't even aware of these changes Selah was implementing. If they knew, I was certain they wouldn't approve of such unfair treatment. I could report her behavior, but honestly, I was tired of her constant hostility. I had saved enough for retirement, so leaving didn't seem like a bad idea anymore. After a moment, I made my decision. "I'll quit," I said simply. Selah pretended to be disappointed, but I could see through her act. "If you wanted to keep working, you should have accepted the transfer to Nebraska," she said with a shrug. The other employees looked shocked. One of them tried to speak up. "Wait. Quiet." Selah interrupted sharply. "Lower-level staff should stay out of this." Her dismissive attitude made it clear she wasn't interested in hearing anyone else's opinion. I realized there was no point in arguing further. After being treated so poorly, staying wasn't an option for me anymore. "Should I write my resignation letter?" I asked. Selah smiled, clearly pleased. "Yes, do that. At least you know how to handle something as simple as that." I quickly wrote my resignation letter, still stunned that my departure was unfolding like this. I had never imagined I would leave Calix Corporation in such a humiliating way. As I handed over the letter, I asked about the handover process for my current deals. "There's no need for that," Selah said dismissively. "You only handle paperwork anyway." Her eagerness to see me go was obvious. She even chuckled, as if she had won some personal battle. I thanked her out of politeness and left the office. The other employees looked concerned, but Selah didn't seem to notice or care. She was content, unaware of the chaos she was about to face. The next day, I was at home, finally relaxing after years of stress. But my peace was interrupted by Selah's persistent calls. At first, I ignored them, but her calls didn't stop. Reluctantly, I answered. "Archer, what's going on?" she demanded, skipping any pleasantries. Her tone was frantic, and I could tell things weren't going well at Calix Corporation. She explained the situation, She had successfully created a department where only college graduates managed deals, all without informing the CEO or HR department. For a while, it seemed like her plan was working, and she had been in high spirits. But now, she was panicking. "Please," she begged, "I need you to handle the $1,400 million deal with Sun Holdings. Their annual revenue is over $2 billion, and maintaining this relationship is crucial for the company. If we lose them, it will be a disaster." Her desperation was palpable. The room at headquarters must have been tense as she explained the situation. But then came the crushing blow. One of my former colleagues hesitantly spoke up. "Manager Sayla. He resigned yesterday." Selah's face turned pale. "What are you saying?" she asked, her voice shaking. "He was in charge of the $1,400 million deal. There's no way an inexperienced person can handle something so significant." "You must be lying." But the employees knew the truth, and no amount of denial could change it. One of them tried to reassure her, pointing to another colleague. "He has a UCLA degree. Maybe he can take over the deal." Sayla turned to the employee, her eyes wide with hope. "You have a UCLA diploma, right? You can manage this, can't you?" The employee hesitated, looking uncomfortable. After a long pause, he admitted quietly, "I've never handled anything this big before." Selah's confidence crumbled. The $1,400 million deal, a cornerstone of Calix Corporation's success, was in jeopardy, all because she had underestimated the value of experience. And now, she had to face the consequences of her actions. "I think the client will only be satisfied if it's Archer," one of the younger team members reported after speaking with the client. Sayla, visibly frustrated, snapped, "Enough. If I say do it, then just do it. If an uneducated dropout like him can manage it, so can you." The young man hesitated but reluctantly agreed. However, when he contacted the client again, they remained firm. "They wanted me, Archer, back to handle the deal." The young man returned to Sayla and said, "I told you, the client specifically asked for Archer." Selah's face turned pale with shock. How could they possibly want someone like him? He's just a high school dropout. What could he possibly contribute, especially at his age? "He doesn't even have the energy to manage sales," she said with disbelief. One of my former colleagues, clearly frustrated by Selah's remarks, decided to speak up. "Aren't you aware of Archer's remarkable career? His resume might look simple, but in the industry, he's highly respected. Many major companies work with us solely because of him." Sayla, who had always dismissed me because of my lack of formal education, seemed taken aback. At 24, she was a recent graduate, and she had focused entirely on my lack of credentials, completely ignoring my years of experience and reputation. My colleagues had learned not to bring up my background in her presence, since she clearly disliked me. But this time, one of them couldn't stay silent. "What do you mean?" Sayla asked, her voice uncertain for the first time. "If you only look at resumes, you might not know his full story," my colleague explained. "But Archer is extremely well known in the industry. Many of our biggest clients trust him and continue working with us because of him." Realizing it wasn't their place to reveal too much, my colleague stopped and suggested, "You should contact Archer yourself if you want to understand." Sayla, who had dismissed and humiliated me just a day earlier, now found herself in a desperate situation. She picked up the phone and called me, her tone laced with frustration. "What's going on here?" she asked, clearly furious. I decided it was time to set the record straight. "It's true that my name is well known in the industry," I began. "I inherited my sales skills from my grandfather, who was a CEO. Thanks to him, many companies have trusted me for decades. Nearly 42 years ago, I managed deals with some of the biggest trading companies in the world. Back then, people even considered me a legendary salesman." Selah's silence on the other end of the line encouraged me to continue. "Let me explain how it all started," I said. "When I was in middle school, my grandfather was the CEO of Archer Corporation, a large company with annual revenues exceeding $2 billion. I admired him deeply and wanted to be part of his world. During school vacations, I would help out at his office, doing simple tasks like making tea and cleaning. They might have been small jobs, but to me, they felt important. I paused, letting her absorb this before continuing. When I finished middle school, while others were planning to go to high school and later college, I decided I wanted to work at my grandfather's company full-time. It was a bold decision, and many thought I was being reckless. But I was determined. I convinced my parents and grandfather to let me work and study at the same time. I went on to describe my early years at Archer Corporation. I started with basic tasks like filing papers and organizing documents. But I loved every minute of it. By the time I was 22, I moved into the sales department. It was overwhelming at first, securing contracts wasn't easy, and my approach needed improvement. But I didn't give up. I worked hard and eventually landed my first contract. The feeling of accomplishment was incredible. It made me feel like I was finally a true salesman. As I spoke, I could sense Selah's growing discomfort, but I continued, determined to share my story. By the time I was 27, I had secured a major deal with a large company. That deal was a turning point in my career. I figured out what it took to succeed, and soon, contracts started flowing my way. Word spread in the industry that working with me always resulted in profit. I made it my mission to understand every client's needs and offer solutions tailored specifically to them. It wasn't just about closing deals, it was about building trust and delivering results. Because of this approach, I added, the sales manager started assigning me high-profile deals. Companies began requesting me by name, and I gained respect both within Archer Corporation and in the broader industry. Executives from major firms knew who I was, and my performance earned me praise, and even job offers from rival companies. I explained why I had stayed loyal to Archer Corporation for so long. Despite the offers, I never left my grandfather's company. I loved the work, and I wanted to honor his legacy. Even when he retired at 77 and the company underwent changes, I stayed committed. But as the new management took over, the company started to change. It was no longer the same place I had grown to love. Eventually, I decided it was time to move on. When I left Archer Corporation, I had plenty of options. I could have joined any number of big firms. But instead, I chose Calix Corporation at the age of 38. Since then, I've worked in sales here, contributing to the company in my own way. I even stepped back from prominent roles to let the younger generation shine. I let my words hang in the air, waiting for her response. Selah didn't speak for a moment. She had spent so much time undermining me, focused solely on my lack of a diploma, that she had failed to recognize my experience, my skills, and the relationships I had built over decades. Now, she was beginning to see just how much she had underestimated me. I calmly explained the reality of Calix Corporation's current situation to Selah. Almost all of our major clients are ones I secured over the years. It's no surprise they're refusing to proceed without me. I managed so many deals that I didn't have time for administrative duties, which is why I never held a formal managerial position. But my salary was on par with managers because of the value I brought to the company. Recently, I had started passing my responsibilities on to younger employees, preparing for the next generation to take over. However, being forced to resign so suddenly meant I couldn't complete the handover or even properly say goodbye to my clients. I paused for a moment, then added, "It's no wonder the clients are saying they won't continue their deals." Selah's frustration boiled over. "Why didn't you mention this sooner?" she demanded angrily. "I did ask you if a handover was necessary," I replied calmly. "But if it was so important, you should have made it clear. Instead, you dismissed the idea entirely." Realizing the gravity of the situation, Selah's tone softened. "You need to contact the clients," she said. "Explain the handover process and reassure them to keep doing business with Calix Corporation." But I shook my head. "No, I won't do that," I said firmly. "Building trust is the foundation of business. If I call the clients now, after resigning, and tell them about internal issues, it will only make them lose faith in the company. They'll terminate their contracts faster than you can imagine." I could see her panic rising as I continued. Calix Corporation has an annual revenue of $6 billion, but $30 billion worth of deals come from the clients I secured. Right now, you've already lost a $1,400 million deal, and at this rate, the company could hit rock bottom. Selah's desperation became obvious. Come back to Calix Corporation, she pleaded. I'll talk to HR and get your resignation reversed. Report to work immediately. I shook my head again. Even if I came back, you'd just treat me like a burden again. I can't work under someone who judges people solely by their resume and educational background. You've made it clear that you see no value in me beyond that. Selah's frustration was palpable, but she couldn't argue. She had realized how much the company relied on the relationships I had built over decades, and now she was terrified of losing those deals. That was the only reason she wanted me back. I decided to be completely honest. Selah, every day I worked under you, I was insulted for being a high school dropout. You constantly pushed me aside and undermined me. Even if I came back and saved the deals, you'd go back to treating me as a burden. I can't work for someone who only values a piece of paper over real-world experience. That's not how trust is built in business. Selah didn't respond immediately. She seemed lost in thought, perhaps reflecting on her mistakes. But I doubted she would change. Her inability to earn trust was her own fault, and it wasn't something I could fix for her. Is that all? I asked. Now that I've retired, I'd like to enjoy some peace and relaxation. Before she could say another word, I hung up the phone and blocked her number. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Later, I heard through colleagues that Calix Corporation's troubles had only worsened. Not only had they lost the $1,400 million deal, but other major deals I had been managing, worth $1,000 million, $2 billion, and more, were falling apart too. Clients were suspicious when I missed scheduled meetings, and after checking with the company, they discovered I had resigned. One by one, clients began terminating their contracts, saying there was no point in continuing without me. Although the company managed to salvage some smaller deals, losing the major ones dealt a significant blow. A week later, I received a call from Calix, the CEO. Unlike Selah, Calix had supported me throughout my 32-year career, so I decided to meet with him. When I arrived at the office, I saw Selah sitting dejectedly in the corner, her usual confidence nowhere to be found. Calix, looking deeply troubled, sighed and said, "We had no idea Selah changed the sales department's operations. The demotion and reassignment decisions were unauthorized. I'm truly sorry for what happened." I smiled slightly and replied, "Please don't worry about it, Calix. You've always treated me with respect. I have no hard feelings." Turning to Selah, Calix ordered, "Apologize to him." Selah, on the verge of tears, said, "I'm very sorry." Her voice wavered as she spoke, clearly shaken by the severe reprimand she must have received. I could see that she regretted her actions, but the damage had already been done. Calix continued, "Our company is in serious trouble. We're losing major contracts rapidly, and if this continues, our business could collapse. We're willing to rescind your resignation if you're willing to come back." I thought for a moment before responding. "I don't mind returning," I said, "but I have one condition." "What is it?" Calix asked, looking concerned. I turned to Selah, whose expression had turned pale. "You're fired," I said bluntly. Selah immediately protested. "Wait, you don't need to go that far. Do you realize how valuable I've been to this company?" I looked her in the eye and said firmly, "Do you realize the damage your actions have caused, not just to me, but to the entire sales department? This is a large company, Selah. If you lose your job here, finding a similar position elsewhere will be extremely difficult. But you brought this on yourself. You judged me and treated me poorly without understanding my contributions." Selah had no response. She looked down, clearly realizing the consequences of her actions. Calix nodded solemnly, acknowledging the fairness of my condition. "Understood," he said. "We'll proceed accordingly." For the first time in a long while, I felt like justice had been served. I graduated from a prestigious university and have always been a top performer, Selah argued, her voice trembling with frustration. "How can you fire me based solely on someone else's judgment?" "Enough," Calix commanded firmly, cutting her off. His tone left no room for argument. But Selah wasn't ready to give up. "Wait, Calix," she pleaded. "Dismissing me is unfair. I've contributed significantly to this company since I joined as a fresh graduate. Do you truly understand the consequences of this decision? Calix's expression darkened, his patience wearing thin. You made unilateral changes to the sales department, he said sternly, without consulting anyone or considering the impact on employees and clients. That's unacceptable. Selah fell silent, realizing she had no defense. I decided to step in and address her. Selah, I began, my tone calm but resolute. I may be older now, and my physical strength may have diminished, but there's only so much disrespect I can tolerate. Yes, I'm a high school dropout, but that's precisely what allowed me to learn the company's ways early and develop sales expertise faster than anyone else. I paused for a moment, letting my words sink in. You mocked me without ever understanding my circumstances. You saw my lack of a diploma as a weakness, but you never noticed the years of experience and dedication I brought to this company. Selah's hands trembled slightly, her composure cracking under the weight of the truth. Your current job duties are unacceptable, I continued. If I return, I can handle the transition and personally apologize to our clients. But I'll only do this if you step down. Otherwise, I'm content to remain retired. The responsibility for all my work will rest entirely on you. I leaned forward slightly, emphasizing my final point. Honestly, I'm fine with either option. I've saved enough for my retirement and have no obligation to fix the mess you've created. So, what will it be? Calix sat back, considering my proposal carefully. Selah, on the other hand, bit her lip in frustration, realizing the gravity of the situation. With more contracts being cancelled every day, she was overcome with despair. She stood in silence, unable to respond. Finally, Calix nodded.
Very well, he said.
Selah will be terminated. Selah's eyes widened in disbelief. Please wait, she cried. I've contributed so much to this company. Your decision is too hasty. Calix's expression hardened. Your actions have nearly caused a $30 billion loss for this company, he said firmly. Do you understand the consequences of what you've done? Faced with his stern rebuke, Selah shrank back, unable to argue further. Write your resignation letter and leave, Calix said. Don't come back tomorrow. Tearfully, Selah accepted her fate. She sat down at her desk, slowly drafting her resignation letter. With each word, the reality of her situation seemed to weigh heavier on her shoulders. After finishing the letter, she handed it over, gathered her belongings, and left Calix Corporation, never to return. News of Selah's departure spread quickly, and her reputation suffered greatly. Word got around that she had been responsible for the mismanagement that led to my resignation and the loss of major contracts. This made finding a new job incredibly difficult. Even when she managed to secure interviews, her arrogance and inability to take responsibility for her mistakes led to repeated rejections. For 6 months, Selah remained unemployed, humbled by the countless rejections. Eventually, she settled for a part-time position that paid a fraction of her former salary. It was a harsh lesson, but one she could not avoid. As for me, I returned to Calix Corporation and immediately got to work. I began taking charge of the major contracts, personally apologizing to the clients who had grown uneasy during my absence. Employees, who had been deeply worried about the company's future, felt reassured by my return. The news of my comeback spread quickly, and with my sincere apologies, we successfully restored several major contracts. It became clear that Selah had been overly arrogant in her dealings with clients. Her dismissal brought relief not only to the employees but also to the clients, who found it much easier to work with us after her departure. Calix Corporation became more stable and manageable than it had been in years. I now plan to retire at 67, and if the transition continues as smoothly as it has since my return, I'm confident the company will expand even after I'm gone. I want my career to end on a high note. While I may have left my grandfather's company years ago, I feel incredibly grateful to have joined Calix Corporation. With the time I have left, I'm determined to give my all, ensuring the company thrives and leaving behind a legacy of success. This isn't just about work for me, it's about proving that experience, dedication, and relationships can outweigh any piece of paper. As I approach the final chapter of my sales journey, I want to pour my heart into every deal, every conversation, and every decision. My goal is to finish strong, with a lasting impact that will be remembered long after I'm gone. My name is Julie, and my story begins in a bustling home filled with love, though it wasn't always shared equally. Growing up, our house was a symphony of laughter, crying, and the pitter-patter of little feet. I was the second oldest, with my brother Sean, just a year older, and two younger sisters, Olivia and Rachel, who were born when I was in my early teens. From a young age, I learned the meaning of responsibility. While other kids played, I was in our small kitchen, helping Mom with dinner or taking care of Olivia and Rachel. It wasn't always easy, but it taught me valuable lessons about kindness and hard work. Our parents, Dennis and Diane, worked tirelessly. Dad had long hours at the local factory, and Mom juggled part-time jobs with managing our household. We weren't rich, but they made sure we had food on the table and a roof over our heads. However, I couldn't help but notice that Sean seemed to receive special treatment from our parents. "Shaw's the oldest," Dad would say proudly, ruffling his hair. "He's carrying on the family name." As we grew up, the difference became even more apparent. When Sean graduated from high school, he got a car. When I graduated, I got a card and a promise to help with college. It wasn't that I wasn't loved. I was, but the favoritism was undeniable, and it shaped the dynamics of our family. Olivia and Rachel looked up to me, almost like I was their second mom. I took that role seriously, wanting to be the best example I could for them. When I finished high school, I focused on going to college. My parents, as promised, had saved some money for our education. It wasn't enough to cover everything, but it was a good start. I chose to study finance, hoping it would lead to a steady job. College was just as tough as I expected, with long nights spent studying in the library, but I faced every challenge with determination. I helped Mom with household chores, even though I had a lot of work. I always made time to call home. Mom would catch me up on the family news, Dad would greet me with a quick, "Hello," and my sisters would fight over who got to talk to me first. I didn't hear much from Sean directly. Usually, Mom would tell me about him. He had started working at a local company and wasn't too interested in going back to school. Our parents, especially Dad, were proud of him. "Your brother's doing great in business," Dad would say during our rare chats. "He has a talent for it." I'd agree, even though it stirred a little competitiveness in me. But I reminded myself that life wasn't a race, and we each had our journey. Over the years, I focused hard on my studies and part-time jobs, determined to make the most of the chance my parents gave me. Their financial help didn't cover everything, but it was a big support, and I was truly grateful. I knew they were making sacrifices to keep me in school, and I didn't want to let them down. Before I knew it, graduation day arrived. As I stood in my cap and gown, holding my diploma, I looked out at the crowd to find my family. There they were, Mom and Dad, smiling proudly, Olivia and Rachel, waving excitedly, and even Sean, standing a bit off to the side with a small smile. After the ceremony, Mom gave me a tight hug. Tears welled up in her eyes. "We're so proud of you, honey," she said. Dad nodded and patted my shoulder, a little awkward but affectionate. "You've done well, Julie. Now it's time to make your mark in the world." We celebrated over dinner, and I told them about my plan to stay in the city and start my career. I had thought about moving back home, but the job opportunities in the city were too good to turn down. My new entry-level job at a financial firm meant long hours, so I couldn't visit home often, only on holidays and a few long weekends. But I kept in touch, calling regularly and sending my sisters care packages. Everything changed about 8 years after I first left for college. I was at home visiting, sitting in the kitchen with Mom, chatting over coffee when my phone rang. It was my boss. "Julie, I have some news," he said, sounding more serious than usual. "We're opening a new branch in your hometown, and I want you to lead it. It's a big promotion, but you'd have to move. Are you interested?" Without hesitation, I said, "Yes, I'm interested." When I got the job offer in my hometown, my company said they would pay for an apartment, but Mom and Dad insisted I move back home. "Come on, Julie, Mom said. It'll be just like old times. I couldn't say no. On my first day back, I walked into our old house, and it looked smaller than I remembered. Olivia and Rachel, now in their late teens, ran to hug me. Sean was living on his own and was already engaged. Later that night, after I finished unpacking, I sat with Olivia and Rachel in our old room. It felt nice to be home, listening to their stories and laughing together. So tell me about Sean's fiancée, I said. Olivia and Rachel exchanged a glance. Her name's Evelyn, Olivia said slowly. She's different. Rachel nodded. Yeah, she's from a rich family. Her dad owns the company Sean works for now. Something in the way they said it made me curious. Different how? I asked. But they just shrugged and changed the subject. I decided to let it go for now. The next few weeks were busy with my new job, setting up the branch office. It was hard work, but I enjoyed it. In the evenings, I helped Olivia and Rachel with their homework or chatted with Mom while she cooked dinner. On Monday, we were all sitting around the table when the doorbell rang. Mom jumped up to answer it. It's Sean and Evelyn, she called out. I stood up, excited to see my brother and meet his fiancée. Sean walked in first, looking sharp in a suit. Behind him was a tall, slim woman with perfect hair and clothes that probably cost more than my rent. Evelyn looked around the house like it wasn't good enough for her. Oh, how quaint, she said, picking up one of Mom's knickknacks. I watched, confused, as Mom and Dad fussed over her, asking if she needed anything and apologizing for the smallest things. Olivia and Rachel stayed quiet, looking down. When Evelyn made a rude comment about Rachel's clothes, I couldn't stay silent. I pulled Olivia aside. What's going on? I whispered. Why is everyone letting her act like this? Olivia sighed. Sean works for her dad now. It's a big deal. Mom and Dad are scared. If we upset her, Sean might lose his job. I was shocked. This wasn't the family I knew. We never let anyone treat us like that. Things got worse at dinner. Evelyn started making snide remarks about my job and my clothes. I couldn't take it anymore. Look, I said, I don't know who you think you are, but in this house, we treat each other with respect. If you can't do that, maybe you should leave the room. The room went silent. Evelyn's face twisted in anger. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, and Sean followed, looking torn. As soon as they left, Mom and Dad turned on me. Julie, how could you? Mom cried. You know how important this is for Sean. Dad looked disappointed and said, you need to control your temper. This could ruin everything for your brother. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They kept begging me to apologize and be the bigger person. Finally, just to stop them from nagging, I agreed to try and make peace with Evelyn. The weeks flew by, and soon, Sean's wedding was all anyone could talk about. Evelyn took control of everything, bossing us around like she was planning a military event, not a wedding. She dragged us to endless dress fittings, insisting we buy expensive gowns to match the venue's style. When I suggested something cheaper, Evelyn just laughed. Oh, Julie, she sneered. We can't have you looking cheap at my wedding, can we? Next came the bachelorette party. Evelyn handed out a detailed schedule with mandatory activities and outfit changes. It was ridiculous, but Mom kept giving me pleading looks, so I stayed quiet. Then came the big shock. Evelyn wanted us to dance at the wedding, not just a simple dance, but a full-on performance. It'll be the highlight of the reception, she gushed. You'll all look so cute. My stomach sank. I had injured my back years ago in a car accident, and dancing wasn't something I could do anymore. But I thought, how bad could it be? Well, it was pretty bad. I went to the dance studio, and the choreographer started talking about splits, lifts, and other wild moves. Evelyn was there, barking orders like a drill sergeant. Come on, ladies, put your backs into it. I pulled out my phone, thinking I'd record the practice, but as I watched, I realized there was no way I could do this. It was way too much. Hold on, I said. This is crazy. We're not circus performers. Evelyn, I can't do these moves. Evelyn's face twisted with anger. What do you mean you can't? Of course, you can. Stop being difficult, Julie. I stood my ground. No, I mean it. I have an old back injury, and this kind of dancing isn't possible for me. That's when Evelyn lost it. She started yelling and throwing around insults. Then she hit me with, "Fine, if you won't dance. You owe Sean $10,000 as a wedding gift. It's only fair since you're ruining my special day." I was speechless. I looked at Olivia and Rachel, hoping they'd support me, but they just stared at the floor, clearly worried about what Mom had said earlier. That was it. I'd had enough. "You know what, Evelyn? Keep your stupid dance. I'm out of here." I stormed out of the studio, my hands shaking as I held my phone, which was still recording the whole mess. I walked home, my mind spinning. What was I going to do now? How did things get so messed up? I burst through the front door, still angry from the dance rehearsal disaster. Mom and Dad were in the living room, and they could tell something was wrong. I told them everything: the impossible dance routine, Evelyn's crazy behavior, and the $10,000 demand. I expected them to be on my side, maybe even upset for me, but I got something completely different. Dad's face turned red. "Julie, how could you? After everything we've talked about, this wedding is important for Sean's future. You need to apologize to Evelyn right now and agree to dance." I couldn't believe it. Apologize for what? Have a back injury? Standing up for myself? Stop being so selfish. Dad shouted. "This isn't about you. It's about Sean's happiness and success. So my happiness doesn't matter?" I shot back. "What about my health?" The argument got heated quickly. We were yelling and tears were shed, but I refused to give in to Evelyn's ridiculous demands. That's when Dad said something that stunned me. "If you can't support your brother and his fiancée, then maybe you shouldn't be here at all." The room went silent. That night, I packed a bag, ignoring Mom's weak attempts to calm things down. The next day, I moved into the apartment my company had offered me earlier. It was small and empty, but at least it was mine. The wedding came and went, but I didn't go. I couldn't stand the thought of watching my family cater to Evelyn's every whim. I spent that day alone in my apartment, torn between anger and sadness. A few days later, my phone blew up with notifications. Evelyn had posted on social media, sharing a dramatic story about how I had tried to ruin her perfect day. She made herself look like the victim and painted me as the jealous, spiteful sister-in-law. The comments were even worse. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly became experts on my life, calling me selfish and cruel. Even Olivia and Rachel liked the post, which hurt deeply. Soon, the calls started. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all telling me how disappointed they were and how ashamed I should be. Olivia tried to reach out once, sending me a text saying she missed me, but when I suggested we meet up, she backed off, saying Evelyn wouldn't like it. I didn't try again after that. I threw myself into my work, hoping to finish my project and leave this town behind, but things kept getting delayed. Problems kept coming up that needed my attention, and each delay felt like a twist of the knife. Months passed, and I settled into a lonely routine. Work, home, sleep, repeat. I had almost gotten used to the quiet when my phone rang one night. It was Rachel, and her voice was shaky. "Julie, can we talk?" she asked. We met at a cafe far from anyone we knew. Rachel looked awful, dark circles under her eyes, her hair a mess. The moment she saw me, she burst into tears. "I'm so sorry, Julie," she sobbed. "You were right about everything." Slowly, she told me the whole story. After the wedding, Evelyn showed her true colors. She had been treating Olivia and Rachel like servants, making them clean her house, cook, and do laundry, all without any pay. "She says it's our duty as family," Rachel said bitterly. "And Sean? He just goes along with it. He sees how she treats us and acts like nothing," I said. I was furious. "What about Mom and Dad? They can't be okay with this." Rachel gave a hollow laugh. "They think it's great. They say we're building character and strengthening family bonds. It's like they're brainwashed." I couldn't believe it. This was worse than I had imagined. "I'm so sorry I didn't stand up for you before," Rachel whispered. I was scared. We all were. But I can't take it anymore. "Please, Julie, help us." The next day, I went straight to our parents' house. Mom opened the door, her smile fading when she saw me. "Julie, what are you doing here?" she asked, but I pushed past her into the living room. Dad was there, reading the newspaper. He looked up with a frown. "We need to talk," I said. "About Evelyn and how she's treating Olivia and Rachel." Mom's face hardened. "I don't know what Rachel's been telling you, but—" I cut her off. Don't deny it. I know everything. How can you let this happen? They're your daughters." Dad stood up, his voice cold. "Now you listen, Julie. Evelyn is family. She's given Sean opportunities we could only dream of. If the girls need to help out a bit, that's a small price to pay." I was stunned. "A little help? She's treating them like slaves, and you're okay with that?" Mom spoke up, her voice weak. "You're exaggerating. The girls are fine. They're just. What, Mom? Just being abused by their sister-in-law while you look the other way." Dad's face turned red. "That's enough. I won't have you coming in here and stirring up trouble. Evelyn is Sean's wife. She's wealthy, and she can give this family a future. If you can't accept that, maybe you're not part of this family anymore." His words hit me like a punch. I stared at them, feeling like I didn't recognize them anymore. "So, that's it?" I said quietly. "You're choosing money over your children?" Mom wouldn't look at me, and Dad just glared. "Get out," he said. "And don't come back until you're ready to apologize to Evelyn and Sean." I left, my legs shaky, my heart breaking all over again as I walked away from the home I grew up in. I realized a tough truth. I couldn't change my parents' minds. They were too blinded by the promise of money and status. But I couldn't leave Olivia and Rachel to suffer. I had to find a way to help them, to save them from Evelyn, from our parents' refusal to see what was happening, and from the life they seemed ready to accept. One day, I was getting ready for a big meeting, reviewing my notes and fixing my jacket. Then I saw a name on the guest list, James Anderson, CEO of Anderson Industries and Evelyn's father. My heart raced. He wouldn't know me since I didn't go to the wedding, but I knew him. He was the man whose money had torn my family apart. The meeting started with all polite handshakes and fake smiles. James didn't even look at me. We talked business, went over numbers, and debated points. Then it was time for a coffee break. By chance, I ended up next to James as we refilled our cups. He started talking, making small talk that somehow led to parenting. "You know," he said proudly, "I raised Evelyn to be humble. Never let her flaunt our wealth. She grew up modest and well-mannered. Even married a regular guy. She respects everyone. Treats them like family." Something inside me snapped. Without saying a word, I took out my phone and played a video I had almost forgotten about. It showed Evelyn, red-faced and yelling at the dance rehearsal. "You stupid scum," she screamed on the screen. "Pay $10,000 or get out. I won't have you ruining my wedding." The color drained from James's face as he watched his daughter scream at me, my sisters, and the bridesmaids. When it ended, there was only silence. "I had no idea," James whispered. "She's always so polite around me." I thought I raised her right. I braced myself, expecting him to get angry and leave. Instead, he looked at me, pleading. "Please, tell me everything." So I did. I told him about the cruel comments, the way Evelyn forced Olivia and Rachel to work for her, and how she had turned my family against me. With every word, James seemed to age. "I'm so sorry," he said when I finished. "I failed as a father. Please let me try to fix this." Before I could reply, he stood up and said, "Come with me now." We drove to Sean and Evelyn's house in silence. James's knuckles were white as he gripped the steering wheel. When we walked inside, the scene was worse than I imagined. Olivia was wearing a maid's uniform, scrubbing the floors, while Evelyn lounged on the couch, barking orders. James lost it. "Evelyn, what is the meaning of this? How do you treat people like this? Your own family." Evelyn's shock quickly turned into anger. She pointed at Olivia and said, "I won't apologize to servants." James's face turned purple with rage. "That's it. You're cut off. No more money. No more house. I'm ashamed to call you my daughter," James said to Evelyn. Sean tried to step in. "Sir, please." The girls don't mind helping out. It's no big deal. But James turned on him. You, letting your wife treat your sisters like that? You're fired. Both of you. Out of my sight. Then he looked at me and Olivia, his voice softening. I'm so sorry for everything. Please, let me help fix this. As we left, with Evelyn's angry screams fading behind us, I felt a mix of emotions, relief, vindication, but also sadness. It didn't feel like a real victory. The fallout was quick and harsh. Instead of seeing the truth, my parents doubled down on their support for Sean and Evelyn. They were furious at me, blaming me for ruining Sean's easy life. How could you do this to your brother? Mom cried over the phone. He had everything and now it's gone because of you. Dad was even worse. You've always been jealous of Sean, he snapped. Well, congratulations. You've destroyed this family. Don't bother coming around anymore. You're not welcome. Their words stung, but I wasn't surprised. They had chosen long ago, and it wasn't me or my sisters. I focused on finishing the project that had kept me in my hometown for so long. When it was done, I packed up my apartment and left without looking back. I found a new job in another city, eager for a fresh start. Months went by. I built a new life, made new friends, and tried to forget the family that had turned their backs on me. But I couldn't stop worrying about Olivia and Rachel. I sent them texts, but their replies were always short and distant. Then, one rainy night, there was a knock at my door. I opened it and found Olivia and Rachel standing there, soaked and holding suitcases. Julie, Olivia said, her voice shaky. We need your help. Over cups of hot tea, they told me everything. Sean and Evelyn, now broke and without jobs, had moved back in with our parents. But instead of being humbled, Evelyn had become even more controlling. She treats the house like her personal kingdom, Rachel explained. And us, we're just her servants. Mom and Dad don't do anything, Olivia added. They're so afraid of Sean leaving that they let Evelyn do whatever she wants. My heart broke for them. Why didn't you tell me sooner? They looked guilty. We were ashamed, Rachel admitted. And scared. Evelyn threatened to make things worse if we contacted you. But we couldn't take it anymore, Olivia said. Please, Julie, can we stay with you? Just until we find jobs and a place of our own. I didn't hesitate. Of course, you can. Stay as long as you need. It wasn't easy at first. My apartment was small, and we all had to adjust to living together as adults, but over time, we found our rhythm and started to rebuild our lives. I helped them work on their resumes and practice interview questions with them. We stayed up late, talking through all the years of hurt and misunderstandings. Weeks she turned into months. Olivia got a job at a local bookstore, and Rachel started taking classes at a community college nearby. They insisted on helping with rent and groceries, even though I told them it wasn't necessary. One night, as we sat around the dinner table, laughing at a silly story, I realized something. Our parents might never change, and Sean and Evelyn might stay the same, but that was okay. We had each other, and that was enough. Looking at my sisters, strong and finally free to be themselves, I knew we'd be okay, whatever came next. We'd face it together, the way a real family should.
Hello, my name is Serafina, and I'm 40 years old. I'm certainly not the first woman to experience abuse and mistreatment from her in-laws, and I am certainly not going to be the last. My story, however, is one that not many people can relate to, as the idea or concept of getting their revenge often seems impossible. Thank God I was able to do something about my situation. I share my story to help those in a similar position take action against the abuse they're experiencing. The story started when my husband said, "I need to tell you something important." "What is it, babe? Is everything okay?" "No, I'm afraid I have some news I need to tell you. I saw my mom and sister do something very awful." "What? What is it?" "I finally believe you. I don't think these women want what's best for you, and I'm so sorry I never believed you." Micah was referring to all the instances in which Gladys and Hannah, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law respectively, disparaged and humiliated me for no apparent reason. Instances included deliberately ruining my outfits for formal occasions, sabotaging my food and drinks so that I embarrassed myself in front of everyone, and even slandering my good business, all because they were mad that I took their precious little boy away from them. I had told Micah about this time and time again, but he would not listen to me. For some reason, at this moment, he managed to believe me. "Oh, what made you finally believe me?" "Well, I saw this." Micah proceeded to show me some of the security camera footage of our business. Micah and I run a business that sells crocheted paraphernalia, from baby clothes to purses. We sell anything and everything that can be crocheted. Our company was doing quite well for some time, and since it was mainly my idea, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law never failed to discourage me from pursuing it properly. "Are you sure that you want to be part of this business? It's not good. It's going to tank in no time, especially with your expertise, or the lack thereof." "Excuse me." What she's trying to say is that you're not well equipped enough to handle this business. You should just quit while you're ahead and become a simple housewife or a working woman. You can't start your own business. You're too dumb for that. Do you see what I mean? These women would always try to refrain me from doing things that made me happy. I think they must have been jealous, because why else would they do something so horrid? My suspicions of them being evil finally came to light when their attempts at humiliating me became undeniable. Even in those moments when I cried to my husband, showing him my ruined dress, asking him to taste my sabotaged food, and exposing their illegitimate claims about my company, he wouldn't hear it. He had to see it for himself, and then he finally did. The video footage that Micah showed me was truly awful. I didn't know people could stoop this low. In the video, we could see two masked individuals with feminine frames, one seemingly taller and one shorter, trying to vandalize our building. They had spray paint and were graffitiing our store. "Take a closer look. Look at this lady with a necklace," Micah said. I did as he said and looked closer. Sure enough, that appeared to be Gladys's rare and exotic necklace that Micah got her when he was in Fiji. "I see what you mean now. Who else could it have been? They look quite similar. I believe you now." I broke down crying. I was angry and hurt because it took him this long to believe me, but I was also relieved because someone finally saw what I was going through. I didn't want to tell him about this because it was his family. I couldn't exactly slander or sue them for the damages they were causing, but I did want to get my revenge. I had been pondering what my revenge would look like for a very long time. Suddenly, Micah received a phone call from Hannah. "Speak of the devil, am I right?" he said as he answered it. They talked for a brief time. Once he hung up the phone, he told me, "Okay, so Hannah just told me that Uncle Peter has just gotten back from a long trip, and Mom wanted to have a big family reunion since a lot of people are home for the summer." "Okay. When? This weekend? Are you going to talk to them about what happened?" "We just saw, you know I want to, but I don't know if I can." "That's my mother and my sister," Micah said. "I understand, but if you want to confront them, I will help you in any way I can," I replied. The weekend came, and Micah and I arrived early at Gladys's house to help with preparations for the big feast. Uncle Peter was everybody's favorite, so having him back home after a long time was truly special. Once we arrived, I noticed that both Hannah and Gladys's demeanors shifted from their happy and smiley faces to looks of jealousy and disgust. "Oh, you two came quite early," Gladys said. "Yeah, Mom. We wanted to help out." "We know a lot of people are going to be here today," Micah replied. "Aren't you just precious?" "It's our pleasure," I chimed in. Hannah and Gladys turned their eyes on me, looking at me as if I had stolen something from them, but they just couldn't prove it yet. "Oh, Serafina, such a terrible thing for your beautiful business to be vandalized like that. I saw it on the way over here. Just tragic. Simply awful," Hannah said. Even a 6-year-old could tell that these women were hiding something conniving. As they expressed their faux concern, they were unnaturally happy, almost elated, and I even noticed them trying to stifle a laugh. I had to hold my tongue. I didn't want to make a scene just yet. I was determined to enact my revenge at the right moment. In the meantime, I decided to play dumb. Micah followed suit because he didn't want to get his hands dirty. "Oh yes, it's just simply awful," I said, feigning distress. "We both wonder who could have done such an awful thing," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yeah, it was hurtful to see that happen to something we worked so hard to build," Micah added. "Yes, but don't worry. The police will get to the bottom of this," I continued, watching their reactions closely. "Police? What police? Why involve them in such a simple crime? I'm sure it was just some stupid teenagers having a little bit of fun." "There's no need to involve the police," Hannah said, her voice rising slightly. "Oh, Hannah, bless your heart for caring so much about these alleged little rascals, but even so, they should be punished for what they've done. After all, it's not like they didn't know what they were doing," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. I'm inclined to agree with Hannah. How many stupid things did you do as a teenager? Don't be irrational. Come, let's get everything ready for the party, Gladys interjected. I could tell they were sweating, trying to brush the whole thing off after inquiring so intently about it. Both Micah and I exchanged knowing looks and proceeded to help out with the party. We spent all morning and early afternoon setting everything up, cooking, and cleaning. Around 3 p.m., family members started to arrive for the big reunion. Once we had finished up everything and were lounging around, Micah pulled me to the side and said, "I have something for you. It's a concealed microphone. I want you to wear this." "What? Why? What is it?" I asked, surprised. "I'm sorry I'm not strong enough to confront my mother or my sister. I'm sorry I'm not the assertive and dominant man you want me to be. But in a way, I feel like this is better. If you expose them yourself, then you'll receive all the glory. You've always been stronger than me. Wear this, and approach them. You never know what you might find, and you can get your justice. I won't stop you." I took the microphone from him, feeling a mix of emotions, frustration that Micah couldn't stand up to his family, but also determination to finally set things right. "Okay, I'll do it," I said, fastening the microphone discreetly. "Let's see what they have to say when they think no one is listening." Micah nodded, giving me a reassuring squeeze on the shoulder. "You've got this," he said, and I took a deep breath, ready to face the challenge ahead. I appreciated Micah's words. Although I wanted him to be a bit more confrontational, I was also grateful for the help he gave me. With that, I put on the mic, hit record, and walked around to find those two witches. Finally, I found them conversing in the kitchen. They seemed to be in a heated debate of sorts, so before I entered, I waited at the door to hear what they were talking about. "She knows everything, Mom. Did you see the way she looked at us?" Hannah said, her voice shaky. "Shut up, Hannah. You're being paranoid." "She doesn't know it was us," Gladys replied, trying to calm her down. "I swear to God, Mom, she knows everything." "Okay, calm down. Even if she knows something, what is she going to do? One thing you should know is that Micah loves us, and she loves Micah. If she did find out somehow, she'd tell him, and then Micah would tell her that she was crazy. I mean, that's what's been working for us so far, right?" "What do you mean?" Hannah asked. "Remember how we put ink on her dress before her pitch about the crochet business? Or how we put spoiled milk in her food and drink? She told Micah about it." There was no way that she couldn't have shared her suspicions with him, but because he loved us, he was willing to overlook it. He'll do the same for us now. At that moment, I burst into the room. I was getting irritated with their villainous talks. Although I had been recording the whole ordeal, I was fearful that, perhaps because I was far away, the mic hadn't picked up anything. I had to get closer to gather evidence against them and use it for my revenge. "Hello, you two. Uncle Peter will be here any minute. Are there more things that need to be done? I asked, trying to sound casual. Serafina, you startled us, Hannah said, her eyes wide. Yes, Serafina, Gladys added, her voice a bit strained. I have a weak heart, don't do those foolish things again, Hannah cautioned, her voice tinged with concern. Not weak enough, I retorted, unable to resist a jab. What did you just say? Gladys snapped, her tone sharp. Oh, I didn't mean anything by it. Just that for such an aged woman, you do seem to be quite active, I replied, trying to smooth over the awkwardness. How dare you? Gladys exclaimed, her face flushing with indignation. Well, I could have sworn I saw you. Perhaps it was a dream or something, but I swear I saw you engaging in some rigorous activity recently. You were wearing something black, I believe, and you were also wearing a mask, I said, watching their reactions carefully. They stopped what they were doing for a brief moment, exchanging uneasy glances. Bingo. Yeah, I believe you were doing something quite rigorous. I believe it might have been something quite bad, actually, I continued, pushing the issue. Just what are you getting at? Hannah demanded, her voice trembling slightly. I think that you know exactly what I'm talking about, sweetheart, I replied, holding their gaze. Gladys proceeded to close the door, so that we could have a quieter discussion. What are you trying to insinuate? She asked, her voice low. Well, I'm not trying to insinuate anything, I said, feigning innocence. Okay, well, we don't know what you're talking about, so hush now, Hannah interjected, her eyes narrowing. I don't know. I mean, if I'm being honest, I think I might have also seen another person with their face covered alongside this other figure, and they were doing something quite criminal, I said, watching their reactions closely. What a shame. I hope you find these criminals, Gladys said tersely, her tone icy. Not so fast, Hannah. I wouldn't want you to miss this, I replied, a sly smile playing on my lips. Miss what? Hannah asked, her voice wary. At that moment, I showed them the video footage that Micah showed me. Oh, good. You caught the vandals, Gladys said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Okay, well, now that we know, Hannah began. Who they are, there's no need to investigate further, just drop the. Honestly, Serafina, you're getting insufferable with this. You're not the only building that has ever gotten vandalized, Hannah interrupted, her voice tinged with annoyance. Yeah, honestly, just get over yourself, Serafina. It's not a big deal, Gladys added, rolling her eyes. Quite the contrary, ladies. I do believe it is a big deal. You see, I learned something interesting when I discovered this video. Look closer, I said, holding the phone out to them. Both ladies squinted and zoomed into the phone screen to see what I was talking about. The look of horror and shock that crossed their faces confirmed all of my doubts. They were the ones who indeed vandalized my precious building. I told you, Mom, Hannah said, her voice trembling. Hush, this proves nothing. Who else has this necklace? Gladys retorted, trying to deflect blame. I can't take it anymore. Fine, it was us, Hannah. Don't you dare say another word, Gladys confessed, her voice strained. Well, she's caught, Mom. I don't know what you want from me, Hannah added, her eyes darting nervously. Yes, Serafina, we did it. We vandalized your business. But what are you going to do about it? Gladys challenged, a defiant glint in her eyes. Yeah, Serafina, there's absolutely nothing you can do about this situation. We know that Micah cares more about us than he ever will about you. So even if you do try to do something, he won't do anything to us because he loves us, Hannah taunted, a smirk playing on her lips. He indeed loves you guys, and it's also true that he won't do anything. But honey, what makes you think that I won't? I replied, my voice steady with determination. Do you think I'm scared of you? You tried to come for my business, that is my baby. I won't let you get away with it, I continued, locking eyes with them. Gladys and Hannah both reached out as if to snatch the phone from my grasp, but luckily, I was quicker than both of them, and I managed to pull away. Get back here, you stupid little girl. Even if you get this phone, the data has already been backed up, so there's no point in trying to fight me unless you want to accelerate your already weak heart, Gladys shouted, her voice filled with rage. Don't you dare antagonize my mother. Hannah yelled, stepping forward threateningly. Do you think you're funny? Do you think you're smart? You'll be giving us all the data this instant, or I swear. I'll tell you what, huh? What will you do? I'll hurt you in ways that you never thought were possible, Gladys threatened, her voice dripping with malice. Oh, I'm so scared. Please don't hurt me, I mocked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the rising fear. Oh, my goodness, you smart-mouthed little wench. Gladys exclaimed, her eyes blazing with anger. We were scurrying all around the kitchen until I finally managed to open the door. It was a good thing I did, too, because right on the other side of the door was Micah. Help me, your mom and sister have gone crazy. I cried out, desperation creeping into my voice. What's going on? Micah asked, his brow furrowed in concern. I'll tell you what's going on. Your pathetic wife is trying to accuse us of vandalizing her business, and she's threatening to hurt us. Hannah interjected, her voice trembling with fear. Okay, that is not true. Tell them, Micah, I pleaded, turning to him for support. There was silence. Micah looked downtrodden, and he was stuttering and stammering all over the place. I know you're not used to fighting with your mom and your sister or fighting at all for that matter, but I need you to fight for me, your wife, right now, please, I implored, tears welling up in my eyes. Still, there was silence, and Micah's face fell. My heart sank. You see, darling, Micah will always be on our side and not yours. He loves us more than he loves you, Gladys declared triumphantly, a smirk playing on her lips. Now, that's not true. I love you all the same. You're all very close to me, and that's why it's so hard to choose. What? Why not choose the truth? We both know it. You're the one who showed me the footage in the first place. I exclaimed, incredulous. What, Micah? Why would you do that? I turned to him, my voice trembling with betrayal. Because it's my business too, and what you guys did was terrible. Not just this thing, but all the other times you've antagonized my wife as well. You guys need to stop, please, Micah replied, his tone firm. We'll forgive you, speak for yourself. I'm still pressing charges, I interjected, my anger boiling over. Not on my watch, Micah declared, his voice unwavering. At that moment, Uncle Peter, our venerated guest of honor, stumbled into the area. He seemed happy but also concerned because we were all here, while everyone else was waiting for the festivities to begin. Oh, Peter, my love, it's so good to see you. You look well, Gladys greeted him, her voice dripping with false cheer. Yes, we'll begin the festivities momentarily. Let me escort you to your special seat. Tell me all about the trip, Micah said, trying to divert attention away from the tense situation. We aren't finished with you, Serafina. If you try anything, I swear on Daddy's grave that we'll make sure Micah divorces you, Hannah threatened, her eyes narrowed. Why do you treat Micah like a child? He's a grown man capable of making his own decisions. He wouldn't divorce me just because you said so, right, babe? I turned to Micah, my voice pleading for reassurance. But he just dropped his head down for the second time in 5 minutes. I did marry a wasp, I muttered under my breath, feeling a surge of anger. Angrily, I stomped away and went to the grand dining table, which was housing about 30 people. I took my seat, fuming, but still trying to ensure that I kept my composure. Not long afterward, Micah and Hannah joined, and I kept silent, even though Micah was looking at me like he wanted to say something, but he simply couldn't because of how mad I was at him. Soon after, Gladys and Uncle Peter came in, and we all celebrated as the festivities began, despite the very uncomfortable fight that happened shortly before the event. While we were eating, the rage bubbled inside of me, and I finally couldn't hold it in any longer. "Attention, everyone," I said. "I have an important announcement to make. There are two individuals here who have always hated me, who conspired to make my life a living hell. Some of you might know who I'm talking about, but just in case you don't, let me convince you," I announced, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. I began to play the recording from the earlier argument. I played the whole thing in its fullness, and everyone gasped and looked shocked at what they were hearing. Hannah and Gladys appeared to be frozen in their seats, unable to do anything but deny and lie, claiming I made it all up for attention. The dinner was becoming a mess. I was shouting at Gladys and Hannah, they were shouting back, and the rest of the adults at the table were trying to gather more information. Micah, as usual, stayed silent. That was until he heard sirens, and everyone went quiet. The police were coming, and they seemed to be coming to this house. "What have you done, you wench? I will kill you!" Gladys screamed, her face contorted with rage. "I didn't do anything." "I did. I'm the one who called them, Mom." "Hannah, you two need to be punished for what you've done. I called the police on you, and they have a warrant for your arrest because I secretly recorded the argument that Serafina played back for all of you," Micah confessed, his voice filled with resolve. "You guys, we've all seen the way that Mom and Hannah treat Serafina, but none of us said anything, especially me, because this is my wife, and from now on, I will be on her side because she's proven to be the correct one." "Mom, Hannah, please don't make this harder than it needs to be," Micah pleaded, his voice firm. At that moment, the police made their way into the house and proceeded to arrest Gladys, who was cursing and yelling all the while. Hannah, on the other hand, did her best to run away from the police, but to no avail. She was caught, and both women were humiliated as they were being dragged out of the house. They made eye contact with me, calling me a demon, and they made eye contact with Micah, calling him a betrayer. The night resumed after they left, and although it was a bit awkward, we all began to share how Hannah and Gladys were toxic. Even Uncle Peter chimed in and said he'd rather be in prison than be around those two. We all laughed and proceeded to have the greatest family reunion ever without those two toxic witches who were my in-laws. They spent the night in jail thinking over what they had done. Throughout the night, various family members were receiving calls from the local jail, and knowing that it was Hannah and Gladys calling, some family members answered and told them that they needed to spend some time in jail to learn a lesson. Others answered but pretended that the network wasn't working, but the majority of the family members simply refused to even accept the calls. Micah and my relationship improved tremendously after he helped me out by calling the police. As for Gladys and Hannah, they're out of jail but have been forced to pay a fine for the damages, which was another blow to their ego. And now, whenever we see each other, those looks of jealousy and disgust that they used to often wear on their faces have changed to shame and fear, which I prefer. Revenge has never been sweeter. Thanks for watching. How did you find the story? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more awesome stories like this. Your feedback and support mean a lot.
The soft hum of the air conditioning in my office was a stark contrast to the storm of thoughts swirling in my mind. I'm Anna, a 28-year-old lawyer. My life now is a far cry from the turmoil of my childhood, a past I kept locked away, even from those closest to me. The serenity of my office was shattered by the ringing of my phone. The display showed an unknown number, yet something about it felt ominously familiar. With a hesitant hand, I answered. "Anna speaking," I said, my voice a blend of professionalism and caution. Anna, it's your father, came the voice, laced with a nervousness that did nothing to calm my rising apprehension. A chill ran through me. It had been over a decade since I last heard that voice, a voice that once meant safety and love but had become a symbol of betrayal and pain. "Why are you calling me?" I asked, my words sharp, cutting through the silence that followed his introduction. "I'm in trouble, Anna. Financially. I need your help," he said, his voice cracking slightly. His plea, however sincere it might have been, ignited a fire of resentment within me. "My help? Now you need me after all these years?" I retorted, disbelief and anger intermingling in my tone. "Yes, I wouldn't ask if it weren't serious. I'm really in a bind," he continued, desperation creeping into his voice. "You stopped being my father a long time ago. You can't just call me now and expect me to help," I responded, my voice cold and unwavering. There was a pause on the line, a heavy silence that felt like an unbridgeable chasm. "Anna, please. I'm still your dad," he said, a feeble attempt at rekindling a bond long extinguished. The word dad felt foreign, almost jarring. "A dad? You forfeited that title when you chose her over me," I said, the years of suppressed anger and hurt finding their way into my words. "You're my daughter." "I thought." "You thought wrong," I interrupted, cutting him off mid-sentence. "You made your choice years ago, and now I've made mine." His voice was a mix of pleading and despair. "Anna, I am sorry. I just need this one favor." The word sorry echoed in my office, a hollow and meaningless sound. "Sorry doesn't change the past." "I can't help you," I stated firmly and hung up. My childhood, before the age of 10, was filled with love and laughter, a testament to the wonderful life my parents and I shared in our small rented house. My mother, a beacon of joy and kindness, filled our days with warmth and our nights with stories and dreams. My father, once a playful and caring man, would spend evenings playing games with me or teaching me little things about the world. Our home was a cocoon of happiness, where every day was an adventure and every night a sweet dream. But our blissful life came to an abrupt halt with my mother's untimely death. The house that once echoed with laughter and love turned into a silent mausoleum of memories. I remember walking through the rooms, each corner a stark reminder of her absence. The loss was unbearable, not just for me but for my father too, who had lost the love of his life. However, the depth of his grief seemed to diminish quickly, much to my confusion and dismay. Within just a few months, he brought home Marissa, a woman who was to take a significant role in our lives. I recall the day he introduced her, a day that marked the end of my cherished childhood. "Anna, this is Marissa. She's going to be staying with us," my father announced one evening, his voice devoid of the warmth I was so accustomed to. I looked up at her, searching for a hint of motherly warmth or friendliness, but found none. Her presence was imposing, her gaze cold and calculating. From the very first moment, I sensed a change in the air, a shift that filled me with an unexplainable sense of dread. "Hello, Anna," Marissa said, her voice smooth yet devoid of genuine emotion. Her smile, rather than comforting, seemed to hide something sinister beneath its surface. In the days that followed, the house felt different, as if the walls themselves were recoiling from her presence. The cheerful memories of the past seemed to fade, replaced by a lingering unease that settled in every corner. I remember looking at Marissa, trying to find something redeeming or kind about her, but her every look, every gesture, seemed to be laced with an unspoken animosity. It was clear that she wasn't here to fill the void my mother had left, but to weave a new narrative, one in which I was an unwelcome part. As I watched her move around our home, a home that once felt safe and happy, I couldn't help but feel that her arrival was the beginning of something ominous. The way she looked at me, with eyes that seemed to hide more than they revealed, did not bode well for the future. The days following Marissa's arrival were like walking through a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. The house, once filled with my mother's laughter and love, now felt cold and unwelcoming. Marissa's presence cast a shadow over everything, turning even the simplest daily routines into a series of struggles. One morning, as I sat down for breakfast, I noticed my food tasted unusually salty. "Marissa, did you put too much salt in this?" I asked, my voice hesitant. "Oh, did I? It must have been a mistake." "Just eat it, Anna. Don't be so picky," she replied, her tone dismissive, almost mocking. The incidents grew more frequent and spiteful. I remember finding my clothes ruined after laundry. "Marissa, my clothes are all faded." "What happened?" I asked one day, holding up my once favorite dress, now discolored and unwearable. She glanced at it and shrugged nonchalantly. "Maybe the washing machine is acting up. Or perhaps it's time you stop wearing such childish clothes." I felt a surge of frustration but knew arguing would only make things worse. Feeling helpless, I turned to my father, hoping he would see through her facade. "Dad, Marissa is ruining my things. She's always mean to me," I said one evening, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and sadness. My father's reaction was far from what I had hoped for. "Anna, you're imagining things. Marissa is doing her best to fit into our family. Stop causing trouble," he said sternly, his words cutting deep. "But Dad, it's the truth." I protested, but he wouldn't listen. "That's enough, Anna. I don't want to hear any more of your accusations," he replied, his voice rising in anger. Each day was a battle, trying to navigate around Marissa's hostility and my father's indifference. The home that once felt like a sanctuary now felt like a prison. I started spending more time in my room, trying to escape the constant tension that hung in the air. Living in that house of horrors, I felt alone and misunderstood. The safety and happiness that once filled those walls were replaced by fear and anxiety. Every day, I longed for the past, for the times when my mother's smile was enough to light up the entire room, a stark contrast to the darkness that now lingered in every corner. Living with Marissa became a daily ordeal of evasion and endurance. Her hostility towards me escalated from verbal jabs to physical abuse. It started subtly, a pinch on my arm or a twist on my stomach, always in places easily concealed under my clothes. The pain was sharp, a cruel reminder of my helplessness in her presence. I developed strategies to avoid her, constantly alert to her whereabouts in the house. I would take long routes to my room or wait until she was occupied before I moved around. Despite my efforts, there were times when she caught me off guard, and those moments always resulted in some form of pain. One day, while I was quietly reading in the living room, Marissa walked in and, for no apparent reason, pinched my arm hard, her nails digging into my skin. I winced in pain but bit back any cry of protest. She looked at me with a cold, triumphant smirk before walking away. During one of Grandma's rare visits, she noticed my cautious movements and the way I flinched when Marissa's voice echoed through the house. "Anna, is everything all right at home?" Grandma asked, her voice filled with concern. I looked at her, my heart aching to tell her the truth, but fear and the desire to protect her from worry held me back. "Yes, Grandma, everything's fine. Just a lot of schoolwork," I lied, offering her a forced smile. She seemed unsure but didn't press further. I felt a twinge of guilt for deceiving her, but I couldn't bear the thought of causing her any distress. That evening, as Grandma left, I saw Marissa watching from the window, her expression one of satisfaction. It was as if she relished the fact that she had control over me, that she could hurt me and get away with it. Her triumphant look was a clear message that she was the one in power, and I was just a helpless player in her twisted game. I retreated to my room, feeling trapped in a cycle of abuse and silence. The physical pain from Marissa's pinches and twists was bearable compared to the emotional turmoil I felt. School was my sanctuary, a place where I could briefly escape the misery of my home life. But even there, the shadows of my struggles at home began to seep through. My teacher, Mrs. Thompson, a kind-hearted woman who always encouraged her students, started to notice changes in me. One day, as I was handing in my homework, she gently grabbed my wrist, her eyes drawn to the bruises on my arm. "Anna, what happened here?" "These look like bruises," she said, her voice laced with concern. I quickly pulled my arm back, covering the bruises with my sleeve. It's nothing, Mrs. Thompson. I fell while playing, I lied, avoiding her gaze. Mrs. Thompson didn't look convinced. Anna, if there is something wrong, or if someone is hurting you, you can tell me. It's important to speak out, she urged, her eyes searching mine for the truth. I wanted to confide in her, to tell her everything about Marissa and how I lived in constant fear, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I forced a smile. Really, Mrs. Thompson, I'm fine. It was just a silly accident. She gave me a long, thoughtful look, then nodded slowly. All right, Anna. But remember, my door is always open. You're not alone, she said, giving me a reassuring smile. I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. Her kindness made it all the more difficult to maintain the facade that everything was all right. As I walked home that day, Mrs. Thompson's words echoed in my mind. I felt a mix of gratitude for her concern and a deep sense of loneliness from carrying my burdens alone. The thought of revealing the truth about my life at home was terrifying. I feared the consequences, what Marissa might do if she found out I had told someone. That night at dinner, I was quiet, lost in thought about Mrs. Thompson's offer to help. Marissa noticed my silence. Why so quiet tonight, Anna? Cat got your tongue? She asked in a mocking tone. I just shook my head and continued eating, trying to make myself as small and unnoticeable as possible. After dinner, as I lay in bed, the reality of my situation felt more overwhelming than ever. Mrs. Thompson's concern had shown me that people did care, yet the fear of what revealing the truth might bring kept me silent. I was caught between the desperation to tell someone and the fear of Marissa's retaliation, a balancing act that I navigated every day. The day my teacher, Mrs. Thompson, decided to involve my father was a day filled with anxiety and dread for me. I sat in the principal's office, fidgeting nervously, my mind racing with fear about how my father would react. When he finally arrived, his face was stern, his eyes betraying a mix of irritation and embarrassment. What's this about, Anna? Why am I being called to your school like this? He demanded, his voice sharp as he walked in. I glanced at Mrs. Thompson, seeking a semblance of support. Swallowing hard, I tried to find my voice. Dad, Mrs. Thompson she saw the bruises, I stammered, feeling the weight of his gaze on me. Before I could explain further, he interrupted, his anger palpable. Bruises? What are you talking about? Are you making up stories again? Mrs. Thompson stepped in, her tone firm yet calm. Mr. Smith, I'm concerned about Anna's well-being. The bruises on her arm don't seem accidental. We need to address this. My father's face turned a shade darker with anger. She's perfectly safe at home. Anna, are you spreading lies about our family? He turned towards me, his disappointment clear. The tears I had been holding back started to spill. It's not lies, Dad. Marissa, she's been hurting me. I managed to get out, the truth finally surfacing. His reaction was one of total disbelief. Marissa? That's ridiculous. She's been nothing but kind to you. I won't have you slandering her with these accusations. But Dad, it's the truth. I cried out, desperate for him to believe me. He stood up abruptly, his patience wearing thin. Enough of this. Tell Mrs. Thompson you made it all up. I obediently turned to the teacher and repeated his words. She nodded back and didn't say anything. Upon reaching home, without another word, he locked me in my room. Through the door, I could hear Marissa's voice, dripping with false concern. I told you she's just seeking attention, she said. I sat on my bed, feeling a profound sense of isolation and despair. The one person I thought I could always count on had turned his back on me. The walls of my room, which had once felt like my personal haven, now felt like the walls of a prison. I lay there, thinking about everything that had happened. The pain of the physical abuse was nothing compared to the emotional torment of being disbelieved and punished by my own father. It was a harsh realization that the person who was supposed to protect and love me unconditionally was now the source of my deepest pain. The days following my confinement in my room were some of the darkest I had ever experienced. Trapped and feeling utterly alone, I realized that my only hope lay in my grandmother, my father's mother. She was a kind and loving woman who had always shown me affection, but I had never dared to burden her with my troubles at home. One evening, when I was sure Marissa and my father were occupied, I mustered the courage to call my grandmother. My hands were shaking as I dialed her number. "Hello," her familiar, warm voice came through the phone. "Grandma, it's me, Anna," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Anna, my dear, how are you?" she asked, her tone filled with genuine care. Tears welled up in my eyes as I replied, "Grandma, I need help. Can I come and stay with you for a while?" There was a moment of silence on the other end. "What's wrong, Anna? Did something happen?" I took a deep breath, the words rushing out. "It's Marissa, she's been hurting me, and Dad won't believe me. I don't know what to do." I could hear the concern in her voice as she quickly responded, "Of course, my dear. You come right over. I'll take care of this." The next day, my grandmother arrived. She was a small woman, but her presence filled the room. She confronted my father with a strength that surprised me. "John, I'm taking Anna with me. She's not safe here," she declared firmly. My father, taken aback, tried to protest. "Mom, you can't just take her. She's my daughter." "Your daughter whom you failed to protect," she countered sharply. "I won't stand by and watch her suffer." Marissa tried to intervene. "She's just a child making up stories. You can't believe her over us." Grandma turned to Marissa, her eyes steely. "I know a scared child when I see one. Anna is coming with me, and if you try to stop me, I'll take this matter to the authorities." My father, realizing he was defeated, didn't put up any further resistance. As I gathered my things, I saw Marissa's expression change from defiant to defeated. Leaving the house with my grandmother, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in months, I felt safe. The car ride to Grandma's was quiet, but her presence was comforting. Once we arrived, she turned to me and said, "You're safe now, Anna. You don't have to worry anymore." In my grandmother's house, I found the love and security that had been missing in my life. It was a haven where I could heal and regain my strength. The contrast between her nurturing home and the coldness of my father's house was stark. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe again, free from the fear and anxiety that had plagued me. Years had passed since I left my father's house to live with my grandmother. Her home had been a sanctuary, a place of healing and love. But time, as it does, moved on, and with it brought another wave of change. My beloved grandmother passed away, leaving a void that seemed impossible to fill. At the funeral, my father and Marissa showed up, their faces a mix of feigned sorrow and poorly disguised eagerness. It was clear they were more interested in what they might gain from her passing than mourning her loss. After the funeral, as we gathered at my grandmother's house, Marissa wasted no time. "Well, Anna, I suppose you'll be finding a new place to live now. This house and everything in it belongs to your father now," she said, her voice tinged with a barely concealed glee. My father nodded in agreement, his eyes scanning the room as if already planning what to do with the house. I couldn't help but smile, a reaction that seemed to confuse them. "Actually, that's where you're wrong," I said, the confidence in my voice taking them by surprise. "What do you mean?" my father asked, his expression shifting to one of confusion. I took a deep breath, savoring the moment. "Grandma left a will. She bequeathed the house and a substantial amount of money to me," I explained, watching as their expressions changed from confusion to shock. But you're just a child. I'm your father. I should be in charge of any inheritance you receive," my father stammered, his sense of entitlement clear. Marissa chimed in, her voice shrill, "Yes, until you come of age, your father will manage your property." Good prospects. Their reactions were almost amusing. "You don't give a damn about me so much that you didn't even wish me a happy birthday. I turned 18 a month ago." I'm legally an adult now. I make my own decisions, I stated firmly, relishing the look of realization dawning on their faces. My father's expression turned from shock to anger, then to a sort of desperate pleading. Anna, you can't do this. We're your family. I looked at them, memories of my childhood flooding back. You stopped being my family a long time ago, I said, my voice steady. Marissa stepped forward, her tone now begging, at least let us stay in the house. We have nowhere else to go. We have not extended the lease of our house. I shook my head. This is my house now. You'll need to find somewhere else. As they left, the weight of years of pain and neglect seemed to lift off my shoulders. I stood in the house that was now mine, a house filled with memories of my grandmother's love, and felt a sense of closure. The echoes of the past my father's call stirred remained. I sat there, phone in hand, feeling a tumult of emotions. Anger, betrayal, and a sense of injustice. But amid all that, there was also a sense of strength, a reminder of the resilience that had carried me through the darkest of times.
Hi, I'm Laura. I live with my mom, dad, and my sister, Anna. She's really pretty and super smart. Our parents always seem to like her more than me. They pay a lot of attention to her, but not so much to me. They often tell me off for staying in my room a lot. They say things like, "You're always hiding away. You should be more active. We won't be here forever, you know." I know they won't be here forever. I have my thoughts and things I want to do, but my parents see me as lazy and don't take me seriously. One day, my sister Anna talked to me. She said, "You're not as cute or talented as I am. Do you ever think about what your purpose in life is?" I replied, "I'm content with my life, so please don't say strange things." She shrugged and said, "Okay, suit yourself, but let me share something amazing with you." Something amazing? What is it? I asked. "I'm marrying a handsome and wealthy guy," Anna said to me. "Congratulations." "I'm happy for you," I replied. Anna smirked and said, "You're just joking. You'll never find someone to marry." She assumed I couldn't find someone to marry and kept boasting about herself. I'm not interested in getting married, so whether I do or not doesn't bother me. I told her I was thinking of going to my sister's wedding because she's family. "But then you're coming to my wedding?" Anna asked. "Yeah, why wouldn't I?" I replied. "Of course, it's a problem having a lazy, useless person like you there." "You'll ruin everything," Anna snapped. "What do you mean by lazy, useless person?" I asked. A bottom feeder or idle youth is exactly what it sounds like, someone who can't do anything, completely useless, Anna explained. "Why are you saying such mean things?" "I just want to be there for your special day," I said. "I don't need your fake congratulations." "Just don't bother showing up," Anna said angrily. My sister didn't want me to come to her wedding. She kept saying it, and even mom and dad agreed, calling me a lazy, useless person who shouldn't go. But I thought it wouldn't be right if no family showed up, so I decided to go anyway. On the day of the wedding, as I was getting ready in my dress, mom and dad caught me. "What are you doing here?" "We told you not to come to the wedding," they yelled. Hearing the commotion, my sister came over. "Why are you here?" "I didn't invite you," she said angrily. "But I thought it would be strange if no family came." "I wanted to support you," I explained. "Why do you always have to complicate things?" You're not even supposed to be known to the other family, she said. What? I didn't know about the family dinner either. You didn't invite me, I said, feeling hurt. Why would you be so mean? It's obvious you just mess everything up. If people found out we have a lazy, useless person in our family, it could ruin the marriage. That's why we didn't invite you, my sister said with a cruel laugh. My parents joined in, smirking. It was clear they had planned this together. Feeling hurt and rejected, I couldn't help but be deeply saddened by their determination to erase me. Get out, you worthless, lazy person, my sister yelled in anger. I realized there was no point in trying to reason with them anymore, so with a heavy heart, I decided to leave. Fine, I'm going home. Goodbye, I said, feeling defeated. They laughed as I said goodbye. My family continued to point and laugh at me. Trying to hold back my frustration, someone called out to me as I was leaving. Hey, boss, great job today, they said. Thanks. Wait, why are you saying that, and what are you wearing? I asked, confused. Yeah, I'm the one getting married. Didn't you know? They replied. What? Hold on, how do you know Caleb, and why are you calling me boss? I asked, bewildered. Also, for your information, this person is the president of my company, they explained. No way, you're the president? I exclaimed, shocked. And what's your connection with Anna? They asked. She's my sister, I replied. What? Anna is your sister? But I didn't see you with the family greeting, Caleb said, surprised. Well, my sister didn't take me to the greeting, I explained. Why would she do that? Caleb asked, puzzled. She thought I was just a lazy, useless person, I replied. Anna, is this true? Caleb questioned my sister. While she's always in her room staring at her computer, I didn't think she was doing anything important, my sister replied, sounding unsure. But Caleb wasn't having it. Don't choke around the boss. She gives us precise instructions from home. She's a skilled executive, Caleb said angrily, making my sister realize the mistake she had made. I didn't know, Laura. I'm sorry. I never thought. My sister Anna stammered, realizing her mistake. It's okay, sister. I understand now, I reassured her. I'm going home. I'll call for the limousine. A limousine? That's a fancy car. Caleb exclaimed, surprised. Boss, you're leaving? Caleb asked, concerned. Yes, it seems I'm not welcome here, I replied, feeling hurt. Hey, what are you doing, Anna? How dare you speak to the boss like that? Caleb scolded my sister, growing angry. But I didn't know. How can you blame me for not knowing? Anna defended herself, sounding remorseful. Ignorance is no excuse, boss. I apologize for Anna's rudeness, Caleb said, taking responsibility. It's all right. She's my family, so you don't have to apologize, I reassured him. No, I'll take responsibility and call off the marriage with Anna, Caleb declared. What? Caleb, what are you saying? Anna exclaimed, surprised. Quiet. I can't forgive someone who disrespects the boss, Caleb snapped, his anger evident. Why are you so upset? Yes, I said hurtful things to Laura, but why is it affecting you so much? Anna asked, confused. You see, I owe a lot to the boss. I had trouble finding steady work. My job history was a mess, and I was struggling to get hired anywhere. The only offers I was getting were from companies that didn't treat their workers well, making them work in unfair conditions. Just when I was about to give up and accept one of those jobs, I received an interview at the boss's company, Caleb explained. Caleb was talking about when he first got hired at my company. It brings back memories. I remember that happening. I said, reflecting on the past. The boss said she wanted to see me, not just my resume. After chatting for a while, she understood who I was and hired me. The boss's company offers fair working conditions and treats me well, so the boss changed my life, Caleb explained. Is that so? I didn't know. What a wonderful story, my sister replied, trying to win Caleb's favor. However, Caleb saw through her attempt and became even angrier. It's clear you're trying to manipulate me, but I won't forgive the disrespect you showed to the boss, Caleb said sternly, causing my sister to tremble in fear of his genuine anger. Please don't cancel the wedding. Come on, father, mother, say something, my sister pleaded, seeking support from our parents. But they remained silent, unwilling to intervene. We didn't mean to blame Laura as much as Anna did. That's right, this is all your own doing, my father finally spoke up, shifting the blame onto my sister. What? Well, then the wedding is off, my sister exclaimed, tears streaming down her face as she screamed in frustration. Caleb remained calm as he explained the consequences of canceling the wedding. If we cancel the wedding, there will be a cancellation fee. If we cancel on the same day, it will be 100%, Caleb explained calmly. What? 100%? How much money is that? My sister asked, shocked. Well, the total cost of the wedding was $30,000, so it would be $30,000, Caleb replied calmly. What? I have to pay $30,000 even if it's cancelled? My sister exclaimed, feeling the weight of the situation. That's how cancellation fees work, Caleb explained matter-of-factly. No way, then we should just go ahead with the wedding, my sister suggested, trying to find a solution. Sorry, but I can't do that. I can't forgive what you said to the boss, and I fear he might continue to be abusive if we got married. I can't live with someone like that, Caleb explained, his tone firm. Dangerous? My sister questioned, feeling hurt. Han, please, my mother interjected, trying to calm the situation. What do you think, boss? Caleb asked me, seeking my opinion. She's saying this now, but she's just telling you what you want to hear to get through this situation, I replied calmly. If you get married, she'll likely start mistreating you too, criticizing you for not doing enough housework even though you're working, or complaining about the challenges of being a homemaker and expecting you to do all the chores, I said. I see, then it's better to call off the marriage, Caleb concluded, understanding the situation. Hey, don't say such unnecessary things. I almost had him convinced, my sister protested, feeling frustrated. Did you hear that? She said convinced. That's not a word you use with someone you're planning to marry, is it? I pointed out, highlighting the lack of genuine commitment in my sister's words. I think so. I think it's better to call off the marriage or go change, Caleb said and walked away. Wait, Caleb, don't go, my sister pleaded, panicking. Laura, what have you done? My wedding is ruined. Don't blame me, this is your own doing. You brought this upon yourself. I roared, feeling frustrated. If you hadn't insisted on me not coming to the wedding in the first place, none of this would have happened. It's your responsibility. Bring Caleb back right now, my sister demanded angrily. I understand how you feel, but Caleb seems to have lost his desire to marry. If you proceed with the wedding in this state, it will only bring pain to both of you. I think it's best to call it off, I advised. What should I do then? Did you hear about the cancellation fee? $30,000 is a huge amount, my sister exclaimed, worried about the financial implications. Yes, it's a significant sum. Even if we split the cancellation fee, it's still $15,000. And if they blame me for the cancellation, I might end up having to pay the entire amount, I explained, realizing the financial burden. Well, that's a possibility, but what choice do you have? You've brought this upon yourself, I pointed out. Hey, I just said some harsh words. Is it worth canceling the wedding over that? My sister protested. Don't tell me it's Caleb's decision, she added, feeling overwhelmed. Hey, father, mother, say something, my sister pleaded, turning to our parents for support. Suddenly, our parents became very friendly towards me. Well, I never knew Laura had become a boss. Oh my, as a mother, I'm so proud, my mother exclaimed. No, I always believed in Laura. She's a real go-getter. From now on, let's rely on Laura's money, my father added, relying on my financial success. You must be joking, I retorted. They had also been verbally abusive to me in the past, so I didn't feel inclined to spend money on them. Sorry, but I don't want to live with my family anymore. I'm going home now to look for an apartment to live alone, I declared, feeling fed up with the situation. What? Why? We've been living together all this time. Why do you suddenly want to live alone? My sister asked, confused. I lived with you because I believed in the concept of family bonds. I hoped that by living together, you might eventually understand my job. But the reality was different. You never understood my work and even insulted me. And now you want to rely on my money. Would anyone want to live with people like that? I explained, feeling hurt and frustrated. I understand. I'm sorry. From now on, I'll cherish you. Please continue living with us, okay? My sister apologized, hoping to mend our relationship. No, didn't I say I don't want to live with you anymore? I replied firmly, standing by my decision. Despite my refusal, my father and mother continued to insist, refusing to accept my choice. What if we kick Anna out of the house? Then you'll live with us, right? My father suggested, surprising everyone with his proposal. What? Wait, father, what are you saying? My sister protested, feeling shocked and hurt by his words. Shut up. I was a fool to expect anything from you. We'd be better off living with Laura than with you, my father snapped angrily, showing his disappointment in my sister. It was the moment my father abandoned my sister, and as a family member, I couldn't bear to witness such cruelty. Father, just so you know, I detest people who abandon others so easily, I stated firmly, expressing my disapproval. What? What are you saying? My father asked, taken aback by my words. People like that will eventually betray my trust too, so I can't live with them, I explained. No way, my father exclaimed, realizing the consequences of his actions. Hey, you idiot husband, why can't you convince her to stay? My sister scolded Caleb. Shut up. Caleb snapped in frustration, as my parents continued to argue. Caleb returned, now dressed in casual clothes. What's going on? Are you still fighting? Caleb asked, puzzled by the commotion. Caleb, I can't believe you went to change, my sister remarked, surprised. I told you I would, didn't I? What's going on? Caleb replied, confused. Are you going to cancel the wedding? I hate this. Why is this happening? My sister lamented, feeling overwhelmed by the situation. Yeah, just so you know, you're the reason for all this, so you'll have to pay the entire cancellation fee. I've already discussed it with our parents, I stated firmly. What? That's not fair. It's not solely my fault, is it? My sister protested. Sis, no matter how you look at it, the blame falls on you, I replied, feeling frustrated. Hey, be quiet. How dare you tell the boss to be quiet? I won't tolerate any more insults to the boss. Caleb intervened, defending me. Wait, please calm down, my sister pleaded, trying to diffuse the tension. Boss, did you see Leo yet? Caleb asked me. No, I got caught up in a conversation and forgot, I admitted. Then I'll call it. I need to go home too, Caleb said, taking action. Wait a minute, please reconsider, my sister pleaded once again, hoping for a change of heart. What's there to reconsider? I don't love you anymore, you know, my sister replied coldly. Don't say that. It was my fault. I promise I won't say anything terrible to Laura again, my sister pleaded, trying to make amends. We've had this conversation many times. Enough already, I replied, feeling weary of the repeated apologies. Boss, I've called the limo. It'll be here soon, Caleb informed me. Then let's wait outside. I'll go change too, I said, ready to leave. Wait, Laura, let's talk, my sister called out, hoping for a chance to reconcile. There's nothing to talk about, I replied firmly, determined to leave the situation behind. Wake up, Laura. Father and mother are begging too. Without you, we'll have to rely on Anna's money, my sister pleaded. But Anna will have to pay the cancellation fee and might run out of money. We won't be able to live comfortably, I countered, concerned about our financial stability. Father, mother, if you need money, why don't you consider getting a part-time job or something? I suggested. No way. I don't want to work at this age, my father protested. It's okay. People are working even in their 70s, and you're both still in your 60s, right? You're still energetic, I reasoned. That's not the problem. My body feels heavy, and it's hard to move. And you expect me to work? My father complained. Yes, no way, my mother added, agreeing with my father's sentiments. Are we done here? I'm going to change, so don't talk to me anymore. After I get home, I'll pack my bags and stay at a hotel for now. I have no intention of dealing with you ever again, I declared firmly. Hey, wait for me, please. Don't go. Don't abandon us, Laura, my sister and parents pleaded desperately, but I didn't stop, ignoring their cries. I quickly changed and left the venue. Caleb's limo took me home. I grabbed my packed bags and headed to a hotel. There, I searched for apartments, signed a lease right away, and completely cut ties with my family. As a consequence of canceling the wedding, Anna had to pay the $30,000 cancellation fee, and my parents were so angry that they disowned her. In the end, they ran out of money and had to work part-time jobs. Anna, having nowhere else to go, began living as a gay worker. Meanwhile, I focused on growing my company, increasing my income, and living happily ever after, free from the toxicity of my family. Let's conclude the story shortly. Laura, now free from the clutches of her toxic family, thrived in her newfound independence. Her company flourished, her wealth grew, and she built a life filled with purpose and happiness. She found true friends who valued her for who she was, not for her money or status. Anna, on the other hand, struggled. Her failed wedding, her parents' disownment, and the financial burden of the cancellation fee left her with little to no support. She was forced to confront the consequences of her actions and the harsh realities of life without her family's safety net. As for Laura's parents, they learned a valuable, albeit painful, lesson. Their attempts to manipulate and control their daughter backfired spectacularly. They were left to face the reality of their own choices and the consequences of their actions, ultimately forced to rely on their efforts to survive. The story ends not with a sense of revenge, but with a quiet triumph. Laura's journey demonstrates the power of self-reliance and the importance of choosing your path, even if it means leaving behind those who would hold you back. It's a reminder that true happiness comes from within, not from the approval of others. Thanks for watching. How did you find the story? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more awesome stories like this. Your feedback and support mean a lot.